God that the brothers on the rise now. Woo! Endless celebrations all in my house. Yeah. Levitating now, I'm super duper fly now. Yeah. London boy, but DC where I reside now. Put the time in while you always yelling time out. And for quit it, cause I know I'm coming with it. You were sitting, you were wishing I was handling my business. Yeah. Now I got the ball like Harry Potter playing Quidditch. And my business so humongous, you would think that happens in it. Damn man, I'm all that, yeah, I'm all that. Working for that whip, yeah, that what you call that. I'ma blow up in the summer, have him yelling fall back. And I've always been ahead like an effing ball cap. Man, I came in the game like, whoa. Got a couple chains on me cause I like gold. They told me I'm the best and I told them I know. Cause when I'm in your town, every ticket I sold. Yeah, they saying I'm the man. Facts, bro. Facts, lot of haters. Tell me where they at though. I'm the new pop, all I do is rap though. Yeah. Want me on your song, throw a couple stacks, yo. Woo. Everybody wanna do the same thing. Yup. That's why we ain't on the same page. No. Do my own thing and I maintain. Woo. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. I'm going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. Yeah, I'm going mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. I'm going mainstream. Mainstream. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. Yup. I'm going mainstream. Damn. Flow like water, so I'm going mainstream. So I'm going mainstream.
G'day and welcome to the Xbox Infinite podcast, our little late show this week. We had some issues earlier in the week and that's why we're appearing at a bit of a weird time. We will go back to our normal programming next week. So that will be on Friday at 7 p.m. EST time or 11 p.m. AEST time. Just wanted to welcome all the guys in the chat. Thanks for coming along. I know it's late in America. So Doovy, Grum, Right Things and Stuff AU, welcome man. I haven't seen you before. If you just new and joining, hit that like and subscribe. Monad, as always, champion, great to see you here. Anyone I missed? Doovy, got Doovy. Fantastic. Now we got a bit of an interesting show this week. We got people jumping in and out, and we have our first guest. He's never been here before. He has been here before under shits and giggles, but he's had to rebrand his name. The Jack Astronaut. How you doing, man? Anyone I missed?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for having me. No, I apologize for the confusion generated by my corporate America mandated name change, but it's great to be here. And it's always nice to get called off the bench again. I've been keeping it warm. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome, man. Awesome. It's great to have you here, as always. JediKnightPete, how you doing, man? It's been a bit of a big week for everyone. How you feeling? What have you been up to?
Yeah, good mate. Yeah, been playing a bit of Dying Light. Something to actually get me off Halo, which takes a little bit of doing. Glad to be here, not on a regular day, but I just want to let everyone know in the chat that this will be the last time that we'll be missing. Everything is going back to normal as of this Saturday for Australia, Friday for the States. So we apologise, but going forward, we do look to go back to normal.
Yeah, unfortunately, it couldn't be helped. I just managed to pick the only hotel in Byron Bay that didn't have internet, unfortunately. Well, it did have it, but 3 megabytes down just doesn't really do it these days. And I've been traveling, as you know, so yeah, we will be going back to the show. I'm in the studio, I'm back home, and I'm excited to be back home, Umbra. We're excited to have you on the show, as always. How you doing, man? What have you been up to? How you feeling?
Oh man, I'm good. I'm glad to be back too. It's been a while for us, it seems, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, my birthday passed this past Friday when we were going to have the show, and I was going to very much bask in the glow of happy birthdays from everybody in the chat and you guys as well, but it's all good. Right now I'm playing a multitude of games, so we have so many to play, despite the whole Xbox has no games mantra that they try to tell us. But I've just recently played through Mafia, Superliminal, and a bunch of other games that I can't think off the top of my head. I'm playing through Nobody Saves the World as well. Yeah, just ready to get the show on and talk with you guys tonight. Chop it up.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of quite a few
Happy belated birthday,
Yeah.
Umbra.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Happy birthday, everyone in the chat. Hit that happy birthday button if there is one, or just type it in. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a few
Shout
games
out
as well.
to Grey Monad. It is Grey Monad's birthday today, so shout out to him.
Hey,
Happy birthday, Monad.
my curious brother. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Monad. Happy birthday. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a few games as well, man. There's so much to play. My backlog is just growing. I'm like in the middle of Nobody Saves the World, A Plague's Tale, which is on screen now. Halo, I'm always hitting that up. Far Cry 6, I've got to get back to that. It's just Guardians of the Galaxy. There's so much to get through at the moment. It's absolutely crazy. And we got a bit of a fire show, man. Crazy show. Crazy stuff happened during the week, and we're a little bit late to the party, but we are excited to be here. So Sony bought Bungie, which is crazy, man. I did not see this coming. I don't think many did. There was someone I was following on Twitter who actually did see it coming. He called it. But for $3.6 billion, that is a pretty big number, I think. I think $1.2 billion of that went to the employees to retain them, which I think is a smart move from Sony. I think it's a pretty smart move to buy Bungie at all. I think that was a brilliant move. It does fill a gap. It also fills a gap in the shooters genre, but it also fills a gap in their live service genre, of which they've announced they would like to get 10 live service games between now and March 2026, which I cannot see happening. And if it does happen, I don't think they're going to be quality. And Bungie remains fully independent and holding on to all of their IP as well as staying multi-plat. So this is a pretty interesting move for Bungie. Umbra, you were in a bit of shock. I think you were a little bit. You didn't feel either way about it. You thought it was weird.
Yeah, I thought it was weird at first. I think after more time thinking about it, it kind of settled in a bit. But I think more than feeling weird about it, I felt indifferent. It was like, okay. Like, it didn't even do anything to me. I'm surprised because I love Bungie. So I'm not one of those guys who's like, oh, I don't like them now since PlayStation has them or something like that. But it's just a matter of it felt weak compared to Activision, I guess. So it was like, okay.
And Bethesda.
Yeah, and Bethesda was kind of like, oh, that's what they did? Okay. I don't know, I felt largely indifferent, I guess, overall.
Yeah, right.
It didn't seem like it moved the needle to me.
It's one IP, right? As opposed to Bethesda,
Yeah.
which is like how many IPs that are just huge? And
At least, I think, 10 or 15. So, and then you got Bethesda as well, like Pete pointed out. So it just didn't seem to register much to me. But then once we got more news about 10, new games as a service coming out, then it started to make more sense.
yeah. I think it's a smart move, personally, as I said. Jedi, what's your take?
Look, I think $3.6 billion for one IP in Destiny is just far too much. In saying that, it will accelerate Sony's plans to have a live service model going forward. So in that respect, it might pay off in the future. Now we are talking, Bungie. They defined the original Xbox generation with Halo. They defined, the 360 generation with Halo 2, and they defined the Xbox One generation with Destiny. They are enormously talented, and it's great that Sony have put aside $1.2 billion basically just to retain the employees, because the 900 employees, that's what makes Bungie. The 10 live service games, look, well, I think they still pay too much, but in saying that, it elevates, like I said, Sony's business model to go ahead with live service games. You don't want another Anthem. You don't want another Battleborn. You don't want another, how Fallout 76 launched. But if you look at the top games, on Steam, Xbox, everything, it's Fortnite, it's Apex, it's Call of Duty Warzone. So it is the way the industry's going. It's where the money is, being made right now. And if Bungie can help accelerate Sony's plans and get these games, off the ground in a working state, then money will be made back.
Well, it certainly shoots that PlayStation narrative in the foot from some of the fanboys saying that Game Pass is bad because you'll only get live service games, and that live services games are, bad. A bit of a dirty word in the industry. It's pretty crazy, the mental gymnastics that have been going on Twitter. Jack, the Jack Astronaut. What's your take?
No, it's interesting. I got to agree.
Actually, hang on a minute. What are we calling you? Are we calling you Jackass or Jack?
Jack.
You just call me Jack. Yeah, I was gonna say, there's a wider audience now, but I kind of want to say my first reaction to sort of hearing it was exactly what Umbra described. It was sort of this confused sense of ambivalence. I'm like, okay, so they bought it, and then when you didn't start hearing about this desire to sort of pursue this path where they were going to do 10 live service, and so you got that about 2 days later. So there was about like 48 hours where I was exactly in the same position Umbra was on, where I kind of looked at it and I'm just like, they don't have the license to any of the Halo, that left with 343 and their sort of separation from Microsoft. And I remember just thinking about it, and it was like seeing, there was that surreal moment was like Bungie is now under Sony's first party umbrella. It was like watching your best friend jack your ex-wife, you just kind of like, what? Like it was just so antithetical to being an Xbox fan, and so, but I agreed with Umbra. I didn't see what it brought to the table. Obviously, now we have a clearer vision of what Sony's trying to do, and dare I say, emulate Microsoft's success in that department. As sacrosanct as that might be.
Again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. And then immediately, I 100% agree with what Jedi's saying. There is this demonstrable trend of the of a growing popularity in these games as a service, and I think. Jedi made a great point. You look at these chats, and you see Apex, you see Warzone, you see titles like that, and that is what is selling. So as far as Bungie goes, I'm okay with it. I would much rather Sony pick them up than say something like Tencent. So there was sort of this, it was almost like it was a known quantity. Acquiring it, which there was a degree of comfort in that. I'm very excited to see what they do. That 1.2 billion, like I said, if there's one thing Sony traditionally has done, whether it's to our collective chagrin or not, it's identify talent, retain talent, and grow talent. And you saw that with, half a dozen studios: Insomniac, Guerrilla, Sucker Punch, Naughty Dog, what have you. So I'm very excited what Sony's going to do. With whatever it is that they're trying to do with Bungie, which obviously is going to be these live games as a service type deals, and there's no exclusivity. To my understanding, that was at Bungie's insistence, and Bungie did go to Microsoft and they put themselves up for $3.2 billion, and Uncle Phil was like, "Nah, man, not doing it." So it's whether they overpaid or not,
It's sort of like the ex-girlfriend coming home and asking to move back.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Like I don't want to pretend to be like an armchair financial analyst. But I would say, the best I can think of is you're looking at this giant, monumental Goliath acquisition. Obviously, the pool of developers and studios and publishers that remain independent then grows smaller, so their individual value increases. So that might have been where that extra, $400 million came from. But we'll see. I'm very excited to see what happens with them. So looking forward to it.
Well, absolutely. I'm pretty
Speaking
excited.
of what you just said there, that's interesting because, like you pointed out, they're not exclusive. They're going to remain independent. So this just seems so weird to me a little bit in some ways.
And their future IPs.
Because it's not the usual MO for Sony.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
that is
the
very
hill they plant their
un-Sony-like.
flag
Yep.
on. It's just,
Well
it's
said.
very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different move for Sony, and especially with the IPs
Very strange.
and the future,
Very strange.
and the future
It
IPs
is.
coming as well. So, yeah, I mean they've got a future IP apparently in the works. Codename Map.
Yeah, I can
and it's
understand.
a multiplayer action game with character-based gameplay is what it's been touted as. And I can understand, like you're about to say, Pete, that Destiny remains, on multi-plat, but their future IPs was the big surprise that they would be multi-plat. It's definitely a total turnaround for PlayStation.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I guess the live service model thing does change things because you want player count. Player count is the all-important, buzzword in the industry going around at the moment, but still extremely strange, especially with Sony's, move into the PC market. Xbox has basically said that their games will be exclusive to the Game Pass platform, which includes PC. Whereas Bungie are going to be launching their future IPs on Xbox, even though they're under the arm of Sony now, or well, maybe we can more call it as a partnership rather than an acquisition.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting. My apologies, Umbra. Go ahead, my man.
No, I was just saying, yeah, it's weird to hear because we all know how Sony plays things, and when it comes to that walled garden of theirs, right? So it's like even when I heard it, it made me even more like, okay, like wait, so they bought them, which didn't do anything for me, but then the games are still going to come to Xbox. It was like, oh, but then like I said, we got more.
You almost wonder if it's like emblematic of a greater shift in Sony's mentality. Because for something that monumental to change.
Sorry, Jack. Risk it. Panda needs the invite, mate.
Yeah. I'm
Discord.
talking to her in the background. You guys keep talking amongst
No,
yourselves.
Sorry, Jack. You keep going, mate.
No, as I was saying, I think you both make a great point. I do, because especially this is not Sony's typical modus operandi. It's not their MO. They have planted, their flag on the hill of great console exclusivity. And that even I think we can all admit that was part of a great impetus for us all to get PlayStations in the past. So it's interesting now that there's sort of that. I don't want to say they're abrogating it because, obviously what they're doing with one developer is not necessarily reflective of what the all of SIE is going to do, right, going forward. But it definitely, it does make one scratch one's head. It's a completely, and not just a completely different direction for Sony. It's a U-turn. It's the other way around. So, yeah, I'm interested to see where that goes.
Yeah, look, I agree, and I think they will continue with the normal PlayStation model with other acquisitions. I think Bungie is a special case because they want that live service model to be successful, and like I said, Bungie really does bring that to the table. But you're right. I bought a PS4 strictly to play Bloodborne. To play games like The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima. I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. But yeah, Bungie's a special case scenario. And, it's kind of funny that the guys that... the reason why Xbox is around is because of Bungie. That's not being around the bush.
Well,
if it wasn't for Halo, Xbox would be dead.
Well, speaking of which, Pete, Sony now owns Halo, apparently.
I saw that.
That's definitely worth 3.6, man.
I was freaking out, mate.
Before we keep going on the topics, guys, I'll just welcome Red Dead Panda to the show. How you doing? What have you been up to? Working.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you very much for me joining just in partway through the show. Sorry, I've just finished work, so...
Awesome to have you here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the invite and glad to be here. What have I been up to? I am now joining the OLED club. My sister's TV died, so I lent her my 4K TV and I'm upgrading to an OLED, so I'm not gaming at the moment. I'm so sad. Like, I want to be gaming, but it's too much of an effort to move my TV up and down and so on and so forth.
It'll
right,
be worth
so
the wait once you get that OLED.
I'm getting it this week, and my other sister got me like $2,000 off the price. So shout out to her. I'm happy about that.
Oh wow, what's her name and where do I find her?
How do you get this great deal?
I was going to say, you know how many kneecaps I'd have to break to get a discount like that? Oh my god.
Yeah, it's just through the company she works for. That's all. But yeah,
We'll talk after the show.
Yeah, new best friend is Panda's sister.
I haven't really been doing much other than just playing The Witcher 3 and then joining for community gaming nights.
Oh wow, you're another one that's playing Witcher 3 when they've got that next gen patch coming in real soon. So I've been holding off. Yeah. I saw you playing it. Yeah, I've been holding off on playing that. But we'll skip back to the topics.
Sorry.
So
what were you
we're talking about Sony buying Bungie, of course, the big news of the week, which I saw you guys talk about on your podcast. What was the name of that again?
Gamers Initiative podcast.
Gamers Initiative podcast. And who runs that channel?
That is Elite Gaming Guru on his YouTube channel. So we do that every week on like Saturday/Friday based on the time difference, because we've got Ashtray Gaming, myself,
UK based show.
Guru. Yeah, so he's based in the UK, Elite is, and Ashtray and I are in Australia and New Zealand.
It is a really good podcast. I actually listened to the entire thing the other day and live and loved it. It's pretty rare I get a chance to do that with every podcast. Oh man, it was fantastic. But your take on Sony buying Bungie, I mean, we're kind of at the point where it's a bit of a U-turn for Sony in so far as business. Does it smell like desperation, or do we think this is just smart business from Sony?
My take, I think based on what Microsoft has been doing in the industry, they realized that they had to make massive changes around their strategy. And we've been seeing that with the way they've kind of backtracked on the conversations that they've had, like, we believe in generations, we believe in exclusivity, and like next gen games only, and so on and so forth. And they've realized that with the way the industry is moving forward, they've had to make a drastic change to that. Like the Azure contract agreement with Microsoft, I think, really caught a lot of PlayStation company off guard, because it was Sony making that deal rather than PlayStation specifically. But that's going to pay dividends into where we're going to see Project Spartacus moving forward. But I think, Bungie was just kind of a no-brainer for them, around knowing that they could kind of hit the ground running on the live service games that they're wanting to do. Up to 10 games before 2026? That's insane. That's a big ask of them, considering they haven't really done any live service games themselves, and knowing that COD...
Well, no successful live service.
Yeah, no successful. We're still waiting on Last of Us Factions.
Yeah,
One day,
Last of Us 2 the multiplayer will be live service, I'm guessing, and there's a big project going in PlayStation London, which I believe is their live service game, which they've heavily invested in, that Herman Holster's been promoting. So they have started to make a couple.
Well, I mean, if you consider Destruction All-Stars a banger, then
I
guess that
gave it away within a month for free.
Cliffy B did that died like a month later.
Yeah, that was the one.
What game did he do? I don't even remember the name, but I feel like that's kind of where that is. And even like Bleeding Edge, like that was a passion project from Ninja
Gearbox.
Theory, but
very small team.
Was it that was Gearbox?
Very small team.
No.
It was Ninja Theory.
Ninja Theory did Bleeding Edge, yeah.
Very, very small team. Very small team.
Yeah.
And it was a passion project, hoping to, it obviously didn't do well.
I'm here trying to blame someone else. You guys aren't.
Gearbox is Godfall.
Grum in the chat said They said future RPs would be multi-platform. What if they mean PS5, PC? You know how these CEOs are good with words. That's a pretty good point.
No, Bungie has specifically said that it's coming to the Xbox platform, not just multi-platform. Sony were a bit more
Competing consoles.
nuanced with their words.
Yeah. Yeah, they said competing consoles.
They were kind of clear with theirs. Yeah, it'll remain multi-platform. Microsoft were like vague, so it's pretty clear that Microsoft is going to do the same with Bethesda as they did for Bethesda with Activision.
Yeah. I mean,
The Bungie. If you read like the press release that they offered up, as sort of a fait accompli, they seemed that they were very clear and transparent, sort of, with their intentions going forward. And it was my understanding that they did say it would go to Xbox, which is something obviously that's been nixed for Bethesda, and what we can only imagine is at least to some degree also going to happen with whatever transpires with Activision Blizzard.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll go exclusive as well, Jack.
Yeah, I think the wording Bungie used was really, really specific about wanting to work completely on their own,
independently,
have the funding behind them through Sony or through PlayStation specifically, because you look at the history, they left Xbox because they didn't get to do whatever they wanted. They left Activision because they didn't do what they wanted. And part of this agreement for that acquisition to be under PlayStation's banner as a third-party publisher is to have complete
autonomy over their
control over what they want. Yeah, creative independence. Yes.
And from everything I've heard about Destiny 2, it has really grown since Bungie has taken ownership over what they do and left Activision. So it does bode well for the future for anything that they do produce.
And how much can it grow with the cash injection that they've gotten? So that's true. It's looking bright. I'm excited, man. I've got both consoles, so I don't think this can go bad for anyone. And if it stays multi-plat, I may sell the PlayStation 5 anyway. So talking about the Activision sale and Sony buying Bungie, what other deals do you think we'll see? Because we've only got a certain amount of time here before that tax kicks in. The tax year kicks in. And then there's inflation on the way, which they all know about. And they've got cash floating around. So that's Microsoft, I think, has got 60 bill. And Sony itself said they've got 10 to spend. And that must be burning a hole in their pocket. So, I mean, look, I would like to see them buy, and me and Umbra were having a conversation about this. I would love to see them buy WB in its entirety. And I'm not talking about just game studios, but WB in its entirety, and give them the tools to be able to make films themselves. So they can go into that multimedia and start branching out into what we, TV, into what we saw at the start of Xbox One is, I think, what they were hoping to do. I think that would be a good inroad. Plus all the IP that comes with WB. You got Batman, Suicide Squad, the studios. You got Rocksteady. There's just so much there for them to do with WB. So personally, myself, I think spend all of that cash, get WB, start making Halo films yourself. What would you like to see, Pete?
Look, are you talking specifically about Xbox or both Xbox and PlayStation?
Both. Both.
Personally, I want Xbox to get Capcom. I think that they have seen the numbers that Monster Hunter has been putting up on Game Pass, and they love it, which is why they've commissioned, or they're trying to commission their own Monster Hunter game. They also need a fighting game. That Capcom gets them Street Fighter. And they also need a horror game, and they, I believe, will give them Resident Evil, which is the biggest name in the game. So, and look, I mean, Phil has said numerous times that they want to get into the Japanese market. Capcom would be an absolutely perfect acquisition if you were asking for what I hope for. WB Games, I mean, of course. You get Batman to counter Spider-Man and Wolverine. You get Monolith with Lord of the Rings. You get Harry Potter. You get Mortal Kombat as a fighting game. Just amazing. On a smaller front, I still want them to pick up a Sobo. And I still want them to get IO Interactive. Maybe cut a deal with Square Enix to just get
That's already happened. Crystal Dynamics, that's already happened.
Yeah, well, they're working with them, in a second-party deal, to get Crystal Dynamics and Adios. That would be, amazing. That's me. That's what I'd like to see, I suppose. Sony, on the other hand, I'm just so unsure after, they bought Bungie. None of this organic growth crap that they've been talking about.
Yeah, there really
deal
is.
is
That
just-
narrative's buried.
That is what
Yeah.
is organic growth? Is that? That's something that happens in a field, right? That's not something that happens in a studio.
Marketing.
No,
That's what it is.
well-
It's Sony marketing spin.
Well, it's
Yeah,
what it
that's
is.
all it is.
It's an asinine concept because a corporation is an inherent. It's artificial. It doesn't have a life. Therefore, it is completely inorganic.
Exactly. But if
For anything artificial to be organic, I mean, they're polar opposites.
But even if you look at what he's referring to, all of the studios that have made their bangers are not organically. I mean, they may have been
That's right.
fostered, but they've
They've
all
all been
been bought.
acquired.
Insomniac's been bought.
That's right.
Naughty Dog's been bought.
Yep.
Just about every single banger that they've made has been a bought studio. They're great at fostering talent. There's nothing to take away from Sony for the way that they foster their talent, and I think that Microsoft has had a really good look at what Sony has been doing with their studios and learnt from what they've done wrong in the past and put those two together. And I think that we're going to see like the competition from Microsoft this generation is going to be massive just based on what they've learnt from their previous, not to put too fine a point on it, fuck-ups. Red Dead, what would you like to see acquired from either
Either
Sony?
company?
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. I'm 4
You are
beers.
all
I'm 4
good.
beers deep. Go.
See, I haven't even had a chance to get any booze after finishing work. No, you're all good. For me, I've said this. I've been very actively saying this on the podcast I do, and even on Twitter. Just like Asobo is a big thing, and I want that to join that first party studio because they've got such a long history of working with Xbox.
What did
Yep.
Asobo make? No, I'm just kidding. It's playing on
You know
screen.
what it makes. Flight Sim.
Flight Sim and
the game
Plague's
right
Tale.
on screen. Plague's Tale. And now we've got Requiem coming out to Game Pass this year. They've got a long history of working with Xbox, so I feel like that organic growth that people complain Xbox doesn't have, I think would be a brilliant acquisition there. I don't necessarily think they need another publisher at this point until things are, I guess, settled down and we really know what's happening within the Activision acquisition in greater detail. When Microsoft can stop being so secretive and being very selective with the words they're using. PlayStation, I'm also on I guess on the same mindset of Pete, because if you look at what they've done in the last year with those 5 studios that they purchased, you're kind of trying to figure out, where PlayStation is essentially going, but you don't know how they're going to get there. So it's really hard to look at what type of studio they're wanting to do, because they've been really quiet about their roadmap of where they see PlayStation moving forward, whereas Xbox, I guess, has been a lot more transparent about that and been very open and saying, like, this is what we want to do. Then we're very much around gamers at the center, and that's been this huge change since Phil took over. I think we're probably, because they don't have as much in the bank, we're probably going to see some slightly smaller acquisitions and just bolstering those little like smaller studios. They might do one more bigger acquisition, but I don't really see them kind of pulling out the big guns the way that Microsoft can, because they have that FU money sitting in their wallet just ready to go.
They could acquire Capcom though, because Capcom I think is capped at plus 50% on your investment would be about 12 billion. They've got 10 in the bank, and you can use. There's
It
plenty
doesn't
you
have
can
to
use
be a
acquire.
cash deal.
Exactly.
There are other ways to get.
Right, yeah. I mean, they'll float loans, low interest loans.
Yeah, I mean, like Konami would probably be my thought of where they would probably go.
I was thinking Konami, but
history.
Konami aren't really into video games anymore. If you look
I
at
know.
them,
They've
like
got some IP.
they
Yeah,
sell,
it is. Yeah.
But you
they
could
sell
see
fitness
that
equipment or
benefit
something.
of the IP that they
Yeah.
could do and use that in Sony's other
there-
areas like movies and TV shows and other things. So I feel like there's a lot of stuff that they could use from Konami that way, which would benefit them.
They're publishing Elden Ring
I
too.
mean, Metal Gear,
is that
Metal Gear
correct?
Solid is basically known for PlayStation. So is Silent Hill. Castlevania, not so much. But just look at those 3 IPs that Konami own. I mean, well worth it.
But they're still publishing. They are publishing Elden Ring, as far as I know. That could be wrong. Well, I'll look that
I would
up.
like Xbox to get Capcom just because I really loved the Dark Arisen series that they did.
Yep.
That was such a good game.
And there's more in my line of thinking. Yeah, I would want Capcom, not necessarily for that specific IP, but just in general. I think it feels a great hole that Xbox has in the Eastern market as far as getting into the Japanese market. So I think that would be the smartest play. But I am with Brisket though. I've been clamoring for WB for a long time. So, and I'm still on that train of I think Microsoft and Xbox itself needs their specific superhero IP. And if they have WB as a whole and the license,
WB again?
No,
what
so
I'm talking
that
about.
was
they
when merged
with Discovery, but yeah, right.
They merged.
And then they sold it off, I guess, to Discovery Plus. But now, so that it looks like they're shopping it around again. Is what it seems like is going to happen again. So
yeah,
it's
and look at, I mean, the price of everything has gone up. That $4 billion deal that was floated just a year ago was looking like a pretty damn good deal now, isn't it? Not to mention the $250 million deal that they got Insomniac for. Can you imagine what they'd go for these days? You know, considering what Bungie got sold for. Okay. I mean, the price of these studios has just absolutely skyrocketed.
Could you imagine? Well, I was thinking about this the other day. You imagine Phil when he got the news that Bungie was being acquired. He'd be like, "God damn it!" Because we all know he's a massive Destiny fan, and he just about exclusively plays Destiny. Whenever you see him online, he's on it. So I don't know. I mean, I know Phil's a pretty level-headed dude, but I reckon he would have spat his chewy when he heard that they were being.
But you know what? The thing is, like after we found out that they came to Microsoft first, we already knew Phil knew about it. So it's like he's like, eh.
Yeah. Yep, that's what I was thinking as well. He knew. He passed them up. He didn't want them to remain independent. He wanted them to come under the fold. I think that's what Microsoft wants to do now. They want to have autonomy. They want to have control over these studios. Not creative control. They leave creative control to them, but they want to grow Game Pass specifically, and they want games to be exclusive. I think that's another reason why we can say that any future Activision titles that aren't going to be live service will be exclusive on Microsoft now. On Game Pass platforms.
So what else? What else would you like to see? Umbra, you'd like to see WB? Is there anything else that and Capcom you mentioned?
Well, WB for sure. I've been on that train for a while. I see J-Rock feels the same. I see a few other people feel. I know many Xbox gamers that feel the same. Hell, I'm in a few chats where they keep posting Batman. So I'm like, all right. But so WB for sure. Capcom to me would make the most major sense, and I think it would be a major slap to not just the industry but Sony, or the other alternative would be Square Enix, and now that would be a much more major slap to Sony. Ooh. And I say that because they rely on them almost as a de facto first party. But the thing is, Microsoft could afford to get both. That's the thing that's crazy about it. So it all depends on how they decide to go about it. And a lot of people will go with, they can't get a Japanese company. Yes, they absolutely can buy a Japanese company. If people didn't know, Microsoft approached Square Enix. Yeah, not only just Tango, but the fact that Microsoft approached Square Enix when they were first getting into the console game 20 plus years ago, and Square came back saying that they wanted more, so Microsoft refused. So it's not a matter that they can't get them; it's just a matter if they want to. So I think if they wanted to get strong in other markets, I think Eastern markets would be the smarter choice, and I think Phil and them know that. So if I had to guess, I would look to Eastern markets and maybe Bandai Namco, who, by the way, Doobie pointed out is the guys that's publishing Elden Ring. And but I would absolutely go after Capcom, if not Square Enix, if not both, if Microsoft could manage to pull that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And J-Rock's just put up on the screen there that Xbox has more organic studios than PlayStation, and that's true. I had this conversation the other day. I don't know if it's 110% true what you want to call organic or how you want to run that, but they definitely have more organic studios that have put out consistent bangers that haven't been acquired. When you're talking about the Coalition, Turn 10, I can't think of the other one. Jack, what would you like to see acquired?
So What I would like to see acquired, Microsoft buys Sony Electronic Entertainment. No, but I think ideally I want.
I wouldn't want to see that. I want
I would
competition
love
to remain in the marketplace.
No, all
Is
jokes aside,
selling their PS5s then?
yeah,
Didn't you see the article, Panda? They're all running out to sell our Xboxes. I've already put mine on sale. No, I've just put mine on eBay at the moment. I'm waiting for someone to get back to me. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone wants them. They're all going to PlayStation.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because it's weird because for me, I look at sort of these gaping voids, where both are really and it's interesting to me because I know I've discussed this at length, particularly with Umbra. You look at what you're getting out of SIE and where are they really lacking? Well, they don't have RPGs, at least in the Western sense, because that is those people buy the Fallouts and the Elder Scrolls, and far more than they buy the Personas and things like that, right? So you look at RPGs, you look at shooters, we're entering an era where, Overwatch, Call of Duty, and Halo now belong to Microsoft, and that's a very, it's a very strange phenomena, that we probably never considered. At least where Microsoft's concerned, I'm going to go devil's advocate, and before you all start throwing tomatoes, at me and you get your pitchforks and torches, I'm actually going to say Xbox is not in dire need of Eastern access, and this is actually why, and I don't think people have considered it. With the Activision Blizzard acquisition, right, that's currently pending, if you actually look at what people play in sort of these highly developed Eastern Asian countries where gaming's popular, Taiwan, South Korea, people very nebulously focus on only Japan. But South Korea is a huge market, Taiwan, all kinds of, of these things. And they play, what do they play? They play StarCraft, they play Dota, These are all now, Microsoft owns them. I mean, they have an access to the East, right? Through these massively popular titles. Overwatch is huge in places like Korea and Taiwan. I think we focus a little too much on Japan because Japan's synonymous with gaming, but I think with Activision Blizzard, they actually have a pretty strong foothold. I would argue that Microsoft, I'll play devil's advocate, I would like to see WB. I would like to see them double down on some Western content because that's typically where they have the most success, right? It would generate sort of the same type of enthusiasm we all grew up with Bethesda and those the Dooms, the Wolfensteins, Elder Scrolls. My God, there's so many awesome IPs that I can't even list them. So I think that the biggest thing that they could do, I think, believe it or not, I want to say would be Ubisoft, because if you look at the sheer amount of studios, I don't know if any of you have ever looked at it. Do any of you know how many studios Ubisoft actually has? Out of curiosity, do any of you know?
I know they got 10,000 employees.
I think it's in the high 20s.
Yeah, it's somewhere, I think, between 26 and what the experts would refer to as a metric shit ton. So if you look at all these studios, and they, because Microsoft has the IPs, so I'm thinking, you get Ubisoft, you test these studios out, all of a sudden, you've got 15, 20, 25 different not just making those Ubisoft IPs, but even Assassin's Creed, they announced that the entire Assassin's Creed franchise has sold something like 160 million copies in 15 years. That's amazing. And that's Ubisoft. I think that Ubisoft would be the biggest hammer for them, at least in terms of picking up the most muscle for the projects they have, because they don't need.
They own the entire Tom Clancy franchise outright. They own it all. And
I think that we're hearing about Ubisoft Play sort of coming, to Xbox, not necessarily Game Pass, yet. We will eat them eventually. But it is coming, and I think that's indicative of sort of, greater moves and all that, at least I like to hope. So that would be ideally for me as an Xbox fan that wants to see, because they have the IPs. They don't need to buy for the IPs. I think what they should buy is just for the raw power, muscle, and talent needed to refine these IPs and to get them out and to resurrect them, That would actually be my hot take for Microsoft. For PlayStation, it's very interesting because they're financially restricted. And I think Bungie was great. You got an RPG and a shooter out of that, right? Sort of. So that remedies kind of, it stops the hemorrhaging, if you will, to a degree. But I think I wouldn't even know what to say for Sony. I'm totally ambivalent to it because I think Sony's best move at this point is what I would like to see them do is just resurrect the IPs they have. They don't have shooters, but somehow they have Killzone, Resistance, and SOCOM laying dormant. You know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of things Sony could do. I wouldn't even know who to say for Sony. I think they need better Western access. I think they understand that.
I have an idea, Jack. Why don't Sony target CD Projekt Red? They need Western RPGs. They have lost that seriously when they lost Bethesda. They lost Elder Scrolls, Fallout, just these massive
that's a fantastic
IPs.
idea. I mean, I wouldn't know the business, particulars behind that. I do know that a lot of people would assume that CD Projekt Red, because of the bad press surrounding Cyberpunk, would sort of be a cheaper, easier way in. I think a lot of people forget Cyberpunk, even today, is still their most successful and most lucrative endeavor, despite all of that. So
13 million copies sold within the first week.
So whatever so that is a commercial success, and they're riding high right now, and they've got the Witcher TV show. They're going to reap benefits from that and already are. It's interesting. There's a lot. They do got to go smaller. I think they need something on the scale of CD Projekt Red and someone that produces content similar to what you get out of it. So I don't know who that would be, but it would be something analogous to that. So I 100% agree with you, Pete.
I think if they were to even look at CD Projekt Red, you're going to look at a deal like Bungie, because they want complete creative freedom. They want the ability to put their games wherever they talk about.
Right.
Like when they first mentioned like smart delivery as a marketing plan, or all the toxicity on Twitter was just saying like, this is just marketing, it's not going to be really applicable. And they were saying like, talking about how if you have the game on this platform, you shouldn't have to pay to play the upgrade. It should be free to upgrade, and through smart delivery, they were big on that. So they're very much a consumer-friendly company. Obviously, they've made mishaps, especially around what happened with Cyberpunk, and they do have a lot of things to work on there. But I think it would be much like a Bungie deal, and considering how big those IPs are, it's going to be an expensive deal.
I don't think they're really in a position to
financially,
no, not financially, but just based on their previous performance and the absolute clusterfuck that was Cyberpunk, for them to be laying down the law in a deal.
CD Projekt Red were just too ambitious. Cyberpunk is a good game. The bones are there. The story's there. They just needed to go next gen only. Previous gen held them back.
We've locked horns about this a few times. See, to me, Cyberpunk was an absolute mess. The storytelling wasn't great. It wasn't executed well. The writing was good. Don't think it was executed well. They lied to their consumers. They just did everything wrong with that game, and like to me it wasn't fun to play. I know that Pete has a soft spot for Cyberpunk, but to me it's just like a dirty word.
But even so, it's sold 13. Because I'm with you, Pete. I'm 100% with you. I enjoyed it. But even so, it sold 13 million copies. They're posting record price. So we look at it as gamers, and we could say, "Oh my god, that's the roving shit show from hell," right? Because we played it. Even though I ultimately enjoyed it, because I have a Series X. I did, yeah. I mean, I played it on the strong.
Don't forget, the second launch is coming up very soon, and we'll see if it can get like a second wind. I think if people give this game a chance, they're gonna love it. If you ask me, Cyberpunk is still better than most games out there. I love RPGs, and this is one of the best storytelling games out there. And they still have The Witcher.
Yeah, they still got The Witcher. That's the biggest thing for me. And by the way, I take a little offense, not offense, but I feel a little salty when I hear, let Sony get CD Projekt Red. I'm like, hell no, let Xbox get CD Projekt Red. I didn't mention
this. I was just talking in terms of what they need, Umbra. Yeah. I would need to buy a PlayStation 5 if they got them.
But I think Xbox would probably, based on what they're wanting to do, I feel like CD Projekt Red, because they've had all the marketing deals with Xbox, I think they would be more inclined if they were to sell to anyone. It would be more Microsoft, because I feel like that company and their vision and what they want to do is more in line with what CD Projekt Red is. I mean,
more organic.
Yes,
I
yes,
agree.
yeah. And then PlayStation, yes, they're making changes, but their fan base and the people who consume the content on that are still stuck in the dark ages around what the industry used to be, and it's just hard to look at it and think like CG Projekt Red could ever go anywhere else but other than Microsoft.
I think it'd be a great, like Pete said, I completely agree with it. It'd be a great move for Sony to pick up CD Projekt Red. It's a Western RPG. It's a beloved RPG. And I think that would be a boon for them considering the loss of Bethesda. So for Sony, that would make a lot of sense to get over to CD Projekt Red, and while they're down, pick them up, because they are a little bit down though. They got a bad name. Like they could honestly, they were shitting gold after The Witcher. They could do no wrong, and then they came out and did the absolute most wrong you've ever seen.
Yeah, that was
impressively bad. I want to point out something, by the way. Now that we had more of the financials, because they had a financial call for Sony, because you mentioned it earlier, Risk, you were talking about they had 10 billion, blah, blah, blah. But that's not all for gaming. I think they only have $1 billion left for game development as far as games or investments. So that is, they only have $1 billion left. They're not going to acquire CD Projekt Red with just $1 billion. So if that's the case, I still would look toward an outside company or even Microsoft of acquiring them, because if you all don't remember, Microsoft and Phil rather was heading to Poland a few times in the last few years. So who knows if he would talk to them, or maybe a Sobo. I would imagine a Sobo.
That's a great call, Umbra, because you go, mate. Sorry.
Yeah. No doubt. I was just saying that you never know. They may have talked with them, put a little bug in their ear, and say, "Hey, and built up the communications between them on that note." So who's to say?
Well,
yeah, this was before the big acquisitions of Bethesda and Activision, when people didn't really realise how all-in gaming Microsoft were. And yes, there were talks about them going to a Polish studio, but no one thought that they would spend the amount of money that CD Projekt Red cost. But now we know they are willing to spend that money. So that's actually a really good call, Umbra. I like that.
Absolutely. We'll move on. We'll move on to the next topic, because we could be on this all day with acquisitions. Acquisitions is like Xbox bread and butter. We love it, especially because we're making so many and so many good ones, which Sony isn't making. They just buy a studio with one IP and then get excited. Moving forward. So Blizzard
they got Halo. I think you're forgetting they got Halo.
Oh, they got Halo. Yeah.
Yeah, they got Halo.
How could you forget Returnal is the best game ever made?
Should have won Game of the Year. I don't know what they were
for the
thinking.
next 4 years.
So we've got Blizzard. Speaking of the Activision, speaking of acquisitions, still involved in acquisitions. Blizzard are making a brand new survival game that popped out very early in the week. It's in the early stages of development, and it's been in development since 2017. Survival game. Blizzard, whenever they make a new IP, which is not often, let's be honest, in the past 10 years, it's these are good games. Every game they make is initially a good game. I think when they go live service with World of Warcraft, it slowly went downhill for a bit, but I think it's going to pick back up. But I think the acquisition and the direction that the company was going, I think that this is something where they can right the ship. And I'm pretty excited for this survival game. The post they put up was more an ad to bring on new talent, which again is another positive thing. With the acquisition, obviously they're already now out there just hiring more developers, and they've got something upwards of is it 9,000? Activision Blizzard, I believe 9,000 developers.
No, it's about, I think it's more like 10,000, isn't it?
Yeah, I heard it's anywhere between 9,000 and 12,000. Yep.
Yeah, because I do remember they did have to hire an extra 2,000 people for the HR department for Kodak. So that it might be like a little higher.
Well, thank God he's gone. He will be gone. So are you excited to see this survival game?
Bye, Bobby. Yes. Yeah.
Not
sorry.
Biggest fan of survival games. So I'll wait and see. I think it's great that there is a market for people who love survival games. And I like the fact that Blizzard is doing more around that, and it's just been announced for that. But my bread and butter for Blizzard is just like Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, like Diablo. That's where my bread and butter is for them. So I think it's going to be interesting. But I'm more of a I want to wait and see. Like I don't play that many survival games. In that respect, just because it's usually a lot of management, and I get easily distracted.
Well, Diablo 2 is a lot of management. That's it's tiring.
Yes, well, I play more Diablo 3 than Diablo 2.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm looking forward to Diablo 4, and that's about it. I don't have much to say on this baking a new survival game. Yeah.
Copy that.
I'll ask you this, Panda. Do you think it will be on PC and Xbox, or do you think it'll be, Blizzard's normal, they basically are just a PC developer, except for Overwatch, of course, but typically with their RPGs.
With the history of what Xbox has been doing, I think if they are going to be, if they might do release to PC and then console later, like you're looking at Gears Tactics came out and Flight Sim came out on PC first and then later onto console, and that's what Age of Empires is looking at doing that as well. So I think you're probably going to see that happening. If not, it'll be day and date, because again, if you're looking at where you can make money, the more people the game is available to, the more engagement, the more money you can make off that. So I think they're going to try and, as it's early stages, look at a way to make a game that is both beneficial to a PC market and beneficial to the people who prefer to game on console. I think you're going to see that very much. Blizzard is going to diversify themselves into more around developing for not just PC but console specifically as well.
And do you think, going off that, do you think that Blizzard fans, the people that love the World of Warcraft, the people that love StarCraft, will like that they're going into that console market, because they like the fact that these are basically just keyboard and mouse games. Do you think that they will lose some of that nuance that they have?
If it's done right, if the mapping of the controller's done right, or even if they just give you the option, like how the console's got keyboard and mouse capabilities around that, I think for some people,
but how many people are actually going to plug in their keyboard and mouse? I'm not going to do that.
I will play an RTS game on PC. That's why I have a PC. I'll play like RTS games or strategy games on PC. I won't play it on my console. But I think that's going to be the marketing ploy around. A lot of people own a console, and a lot of people own some type of PC, like whether it's a laptop. And if you're going to be smart, you're going to buy into Game Pass Ultimate to get the option to play that game on either system of your choice, with the cross save and cross progression. But I think for some people, it's not going to move the needle. For a lot of people who are already hardcore PC gamers who play those games, it's their bread and butter. I think for the console gamers, if it's introduced onto Game Pass, you're gonna get people trying it out, and then they'll probably find a home in a market. But there's a lot of statistics that Microsoft has that can support and show to Blizzard to kind of make that argument, especially from the Coalition as a studio. And what's the studio doing? Age of Empires, and so there's a lot of stuff that they can
Age of Empires, Total War.
Yeah.
They'll both come
that's
into
our
console.
creative assembly.
Yeah. So they've got a lot of stuff that they can show to Blizzard and go like, this is what it is, and this is why it might be a really good beneficial idea to go onto the console side of things.
It will be really interesting to see how those two real-time strategy games actually do go on console and how many people actually play them. I think that will determine a lot of what Blizzard does. What do you think, Umbra? Are you a Blizzard fan, mate? Are you looking forward to this new game?
I'm a fan of games in general. I've known of Blizzard. I played the games back in the day. Blizzard been around for a long time. But as far as WoW, I've never played it. But I think I'm very interested in seeing how they go with this and what comes out of it. I think coming from under Kotick and the toxic situation they had there with Activision is going to allow way much more creative juices to flow, if you will. And I think, too, we've already heard from JS coordinators 3 games from Blizzard that are coming, that they're working on rather. So I think we're going to get some good stuff out of this beside that. But I am excited for Diablo 4 from the teaser they showed us, and actually having Ferguson ahead of that. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be good, and I'm more than certain that's going to be console exclusive to Xbox. It's not even a question in my mind. And I think that's a major feather in the cap as well. So that, if they can manage to do it, bring WoW to Xbox as well. If they can do that, that would be major. And again, I'm not big on MMOs, but I would actually try to do that because I know it's a storied franchise. I know it's a legendary IP. Why not? Right? I think
one of the
that would
biggest
also be a
games
major
ever made.
effort. Absolutely. So why not get that in there and bring it to console somehow? Maybe just tie it into that you have to use your mouse and keyboard. I mean, they can find ways to do it if they really wanted to. It's all depending on how they approach it. But I think even when you look at history, you see how Halo rejuvenated, or not rejuvenated, but evolved the first-person shooter, as well as like games like GoldenEye, right? Because before, nobody thought first-person shooters could be used on consoles with the controller. So I think the same can be said for RTSs or MMOs like WoW and such. If they can absolutely find a way to map it. It just depends on how far they want to go with it. But yeah, I'm excited for it, man. I'm excited to see what they do. I'm excited to see what comes out of this new, I guess, partnership, if you will. I mean, we know it's an acquisition, but I'm excited for it. And, some people would have argued, oh, they're leaving Activision. It's going to be worse. They're going to Xbox, Microsoft ruins, blah, blah, blah. Microsoft has, if you all didn't know, on Glassdoor, one of the highest rated reviews as a company. I mean, I'm talking about in the 90 percentile. So you can't go from the terrible
for Microsoft. Yep.
Yeah, you can't go from where they were with Activision, with Kotick, to saying they're going to be worse under Microsoft. It's just It's just dumb to say. It's just ignorant, and it's wishful. I think just wishful hating, not wishful thinking, but just wishful hating at that point. But I'm absolutely excited. That's the biggest thing for me, and we spoke on this too, Pete, as far as what dream scenarios do you think can come out of this IP-wise? Because they got so much, they've had so much IP in Activision. But yeah, imagine if they start if Microsoft actually starts doing a whole, organic, I do that with parentheses fingers, and allow other studios that they own under them to take some of those IP on and do things with them. I mean, we can see a lot of this stuff.
If you're going to bring World of Warcraft to console, why not bring StarCraft?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, why not do the rejuvenated, bring back StarCraft Ghost that they were going to have, which was a third person.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing the Marcus Phoenix collection. They could do a similar things with Blizzard titles.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, let the Coalition make the StarCraft Ghost. That's their forte, the third-person action shooter like that. Let them do that. I can imagine it will be great.
I love that. I love that. And we were talking about that. We were talking about what studios you'd like to see work together, and that's an absolutely fantastic one. In saying that, Jack, so World of Warcraft, StarCraft, Diablo, this new IP, what are you most looking forward to from Blizzard? Are you a PC gamer, or are you strictly console gamer?
Were you talking to me?
I was, Jack, yep.
Oh, my apologies. You cut out for a second. I blame it on the Pacific. I am a PC gamer. In fact, not to the degree that I'm a console gamer, because, obviously, if I were to play PC at the same level of fidelity, because I'm Risk It, I have a PS5 and a Series X, I got a Switch OLED, all that.
Yeah.
If I were to do that, that would be that would be like a $4,800 entry point. And so, for me at least, with everything I do, I feel like to be a PC gamer on the level of being a console gamer, you do have to be a couple tax brackets above the average gamer, So it's not, for a lot of people, it's not the most feasible option. But I am a PC gamer. I do have a gaming PC, I'm particularly looking forward to, and I wanted to touch back on what Umbra was saying, because I think these are very closely connected. I'm particularly looking, believe it or not, one of the games I am looking forward to the most is Total War Warhammer 3. At least PC, that RTS. So I'm very excited.
I mean, it's a Game Pass.
Exactly, and exactly. And I don't have to buy it now, which is fantastic. And I think, even Panda was talking about a little bit earlier. There's so much potential for these RTS games to come to console, right? And it has happened. A lot of people forget that Halo was a thing, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't awful. It worked. It served its purpose, Halo Wars is a real-time strategy game. You go all the way back to 360. You guys remember playing Tom Clancy's End War, where you'd talk into your headset and it would respond. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was
Okay,
a
go.
real-time strategy
Yeah,
game.
love
you know,
that. That
so-
was one of the best Ubisoft games ever made. I love that game.
Yeah, it was a great game. So I think everybody, because I know all of you guys have touched on it. I think you can definitely do it because it's been done, right? And if you can do it in 2007 with End War, you can do it in 2022. With upcoming titles. As far as Blizzard goes, it's interesting because I'm not so much enthralled, believe it or not, with the Blizzard part of the deal as the Activision part of the deal. But with a lot of these dormant IPs, like one that I would love to see come back would be True Crime. I think True Crime would be amazing to see again after,
Does
15,
that
20 years.
have anything to do with
Absolutely.
growing up in Boston?
So here's the thing. So, so for me and Umbra, obviously we're the Americans here, right? Like you guys, you play Dying Light and you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. Me and Umbra are like, dude, it's Tuesday, like it's just the day. Like, yeah, it kind of does. I like to be able to do things that I like to do without legal ramifications. So it'd be nice to be able to do that in a video game, where carjacking's not quite the felony it otherwise would be.
Look, I gotta hit this question up on the screen here. Is Logical posted a question? Is do you guys and gals think that Microsoft, with all of its current acquisitions, is in a good position to put a pause on acquiring companies?
They have to. At least at the publisher level. That's why, so as much as we'd love to see it, I think at the publisher level they have to. At least in terms of the big ones, I do. Only because on the back of Activision and Blizzard, along with ZeniMax, Bethesda, and all that, it's not a problem with the FTC. It's not going to fail any antitrust legislation or hurdle. At least in terms of
keep in mind here. Tax is coming up, and they know they're going to be losing a big chunk of their cash to inflation soon. So they stand to lose probably another 20 billion off the top of their 60 that they've got lying around in cash. Not to mention assets. So,
I agree that it's a problem. I think it's definitely an impetus to move. I think Panda was talking about like a Sobo. I think you could do something on the scale of a Sobo. I know you were talking earlier with Pete. Crystal, exactly. You could do Crystal Dynamics. You could probably do IOI, you could get away with something like that, which not like one of these Sony's like Fire Sprite, which is pocket change. You could get something with IPs, with titles. I like to see them, get a publisher, obviously, because I want the most free shit possible on Game Pass. That would be amazing. And I think we all agree on that. But I think the smart move right now, because the time window tax season is obviously in April, it's like 60 days away, give or take, a week or so. Get something on that scale. I could definitely see that happening, particularly with something like a Crystal Dynamics. But to pick up a publisher, I think, is less viable in terms of optics for Microsoft than it is for Sony.
It might do more harm than good, is what you're saying. I completely agree with that, especially with FTC having to look at them as they are and as they're going to. Umbra, what do you think? Do you think that they're going to put a pause on all their current acquisitions, at least on publishers?
I mean, I think for now, that's a good question, by the way, my brother Lodge. I think for now, I think we can all agree that they will, because right now with the FTC investigating or whatever they want to claim that they're doing, I don't think they're really doing too much of anything. I think this is done.
Standard, yeah.
Yeah, but absolutely, I think they'll pause on it just because it could bring negativity their way as far as things go. But I do agree with Jack as far as them going after smaller studios like Asobo or Crystal Dynamics. I wouldn't call them small, but you know what I mean.
Right, mid-level.
Yeah, and that's dependent, of course, on Square, and I think Square wants to get rid of them anyway, to be honest. But I think that will happen. So I could see that as far as that goes immediately. So it's to be seen, but I would be very interested to see if Microsoft just pull the junk out and lay it on the table and like, nah, we got Capcom 2 now, this same year. That would be crazy to me to see. And by the way, if you all didn't know, Jeff Keighley, who definitely has inside information, spoke on it immediately in his tweets talking about there will be more this year. So who's to say? I'm very excited to see, but I think the smart money would say that they'll wait, and we'll probably hear something either later this year or next year as far as acquisitions with Microsoft. But I definitely think they will get more. I mean, they got, like you said, $60 billion on the table right now to grab, so
That's
it's
right.
going to happen.
And to lose.
I mean,
and
Game
to
Pass
lose.
has to be fed. It has to be fed. So it'll happen.
Oh, I think
It's
we're
inevitable.
eating good if you're on Game Pass. Like,
Oh,
at
absolutely.
the moment, there's too much. I've got too much, and they would know that too. Panda, what do you think? Do you think that we will see more acquisitions this year from Microsoft? Because Keeley's tweets were after the Bungie acquisition, so he may have been referring to Sony, that Sony wasn't done. But you never know. He could have been referring to Nintendo. Who knows? Panda?
Like I said, I really don't think they're going to go for anything big. I don't think they need to at this point, because they've kind of put this roadmap out to say, like, we've got all these games, they're all going to Game Pass. They've got so many IPs that need to come out from ice, like come off the ice. And I feel like they're only going to really add a few bits and pieces here and there. I feel like Sony is the one that probably needs that specifically to bolster their oh my god, why can't Spartacus? That's it, Spartacus. What they're offering on Spartacus.
Have you also been drinking?
No, I've just had a really long day because I train people, so I like answering 1,001 questions today. Yeah, but yeah, I just don't see. I think there's still acquisitions coming. There's no doubt in my mind that Microsoft definitely has an idea of what they want to do and what they want to hit around the numbers of engagement on Game Pass. And just I think who was it who talked about it in one of their videos? I can't think of his name, but he talked about how, like, you look at what the acquisition does and sort of like what size acquisition and how many people you can bring on to Game Pass as part of an acquisition, because everyone who looked at the Activision stuff were like, damn, Game Pass now is one hell of a deal. It'll be a no-brainer to decide to subscribe to that as a service. And so I think they're going to be very strategic around the type of acquisitions they do and go, if we acquire this, how many people can we get to possibly subscribe as new subscribers to Game Pass as part of that? So I think that's also what they're considering, like what IPs would be the ones that are kind of going to bring
people
most
in.
people on. Yeah, and I think that's the type of acquisitions we're probably going to be looking at, and you'll be able to see and go, oh, that explains why we're doing that why Microsoft is doing that acquisition, because this is a huge IP and it's going to bring a whole heap of new subscribers into Game Pass. So I think that's the type of acquisitions we're probably going to see.
In saying that, I think the Adam Conover video was probably the best video about that, Panda,
yeah.
don't you think? I think that was just fantastic.
He's on the money.
Great satire. It was.
God, I just wanted to like offer him a Xanax or something. Like, I felt bad.
Yeah, he looked like he had a headache. Eric Cuts for the win gets a lot of motion sickness, and I was wondering if she was grabbing the sick bag like while that dude was talking, because man, that head was everywhere. Speaking of Game Pass, mate, we're having another stacked month. This is absolutely crazy. What's coming? This is out of control. There's too much. I'm almost want to tell them to stop. Like, please stop. I don't have enough time for this. We've got Crossfire, at least the first operation, which is Catalyst. The other campaigns you will have to buy, but from what I've heard about Crossfire X, it doesn't seem like I will be buying it, but I'll be playing it on Game Pass for sure. We got the Aussie update, which is why if you look at the ticker, I will be flying over Jedi's house and dropping bombs. We've got the definitive arc coming. We've got Edge of Eternity, and what do we have now? We've already got Hitman, all three of the Hitmans, the updated versions. We've got Extraction. Nobody Saves the World. This is like out of control, and Panda doesn't even have a TV.
Yep.
Don't worry, don't worry, Panda. I know a guy. I got you.
I've sorted.
But Nobody Saves the World, by the way, is a good game that you all haven't played it.
Amazing.
Definitely get on it.
Oh, not to mention Who's Your Daddy? Now, that is a solid game that I recommend everyone should play.
Yeah,
That's out of control.
I forget about that.
So, I don't know if you saw the report earlier in the week, but Microsoft revenue was up 8% year over year. The Xbox services revenue, though, is up 10% year over year, and that's for the quarter. The cloud itself grew 22 billion. That's 32% year over year. And they're saying that the growth has been pretty much attributed to Halo and Forza. Which is crazy because Halo's just a terrible, horrible game that I just never play constantly.
Absolutely. I totally didn't see you on it 4 hours ago.
The grass, I
Forza's
just
just a racing game, right?
I spend my time in the grass and like just looking at it and wading through it and not giving a flying anyway.
Well, that's Sony's problem now. They own IP.
Hopefully they can get it updated and sorted soon.
Forza's not a game. You got to play Gran Turismo, okay?
Yeah. With the
That's for the replay in theater mode only.
with the
Because
PS3
we're
crap.
told that simulation games aren't video games, so really,
Right.
who's playing GT?
I mean, demand better.
Oh.
I play Gran Turismo. I got 64-bit trees, okay? Demand better, Xbox. Demand better.
Oh, those trees look like Lego blocks.
They look like
Yeah, they really do.
they look like 2D sprites. Okay.
Look, going
God,
off topic.
they're
Did you see that Horizon Zero Dawn? What are they calling him? Jack or something?
Forbidden West.
Forbidden West. That dude in the background. Oh, that is upsetting. Especially if you were on the Craig train a year ago.
Can I ask you a personal question, Risket?
Yeah,
As PlayStation 5 owners, are you gonna like shovel shit and just buy it with me? Are we gonna kind of like go trade it for 2 weeks?
I don't know if you know how I feel about Horizon, but look, the story is 6 months ago, a friend of mine gave me a PlayStation 4. I hadn't touched PlayStation since PlayStation 1. And I was like, yeah, man, they got, like, apparently these are good games. They got God of War and all this. And now God of War is my game of all time. So I went through the catalog, right? The PS4 catalog and played them all. And I think Horizon was the last one I got to. And I could only manage 3 hours of that game before I put the controller down, uninstalled it, and I will never play it again. It is the most boring game I've ever touched in my life, and I cannot see the next one being any different. I mean, it sounded cool, right? Techno dinos, man, you're like in a dystopian thing, and the story sounded cool.
I can't blame you. That game starts in the town I live in, so I know it's boring.
Yeah, it's extremely slow to begin. I mean, I've been told that PlayStation games require you to play at least 5 hours, not enjoy that 5 hours, to then get the enjoyment from the final 15 hours. So, I mean, you know, you've got to make...
It sounds like Death Stranding to me.
It's not just the money you have to invest. You have to invest your time.
Once you get past the first 3 hours and 27 minutes of cutscenes, I mean, the game's a fucking bomb.
Well, and the quick time events, just absolutes. The skill involved is just... I can't...
Yeah, if you can get past the prologue of all those games before the Lord of the Rings movie finishes, you're going to love it.
Which Lord of the Rings movie we talking about?
All of
Hey,
it.
hey,
All of
don't
them.
hang on,
Come
Lord of
on.
the Rings. The more Lord of the Rings I get, the better, mate.
Yeah, do you
I'll
know-
watch
yeah,
the
I-
extended
do you know how
versions
many
every
times
single time.
I stood up in
I
the
mean-
last one. I stood up in the last one because I thought it was the I can't remember the final one. But at the end, I stood up 3 times. I'm
And
like,
the
all right,
yeah.
cool. That's the end of the show. No, it's
I
not.
wanted.
Yeah,
It was
the
like
last
Last
15
of Us-
minutes of Return of the
It's,
King
it's
is
like The
quite
Last of Us
strange.
2. It's like, what are we doing? What's going on? Why are we back here again? And oh, yeah, cool, it's finished. And oh man,
I mean, I just want to defer to Panda because she's actually in the Shire. Did those impress you at all?
Okay, what was your
You know.
question? Did those
She's in the
impress you at
Shire.
all, the movies?
Yeah, I mean because you're from the Shire.
Yeah, I am from Middle Earth. Yep.
That's true.
Yep.
Do
you have-
extremely impressive?
do you have hairy
considering-
feet? I just need to ask.
No, but
big
no one in
tough-
New Zealand really wears shoes, so we're basically hobbits anyway.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. I'm wondering during rugby season, do you guys like fling bricks across the ocean at one another? How's that work?
Oh, between Australia and New Zealand.
No,
Yeah.
we do it in the
And
stadium. We do it in the stadium.
Oh,
mate.
you do it.
Not-
In,
not
okay,
across-
you gentlemen.
You
murder
can't
this.
really hurt someone from across the ocean, but you can get a good shot at the stadium. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We don't talk rugby union anymore because New Zealand are too good.
Yeah. I forgot hurting people across oceans is kind of our thing. You know?
Oh
I
shit!
think
Oh,
we're
sorry.
all
That was my COVID kicking in. Look, I'm going to move on, but not move on too far because that Halo TV show trailer dropped, and
No. We're still going to go over the Microsoft earnings.
Alright, you go.
I think
You
that's
go. You got more to say?
I think that's important. Especially, you did mention that it's gone up 8%, but I did want to get everyone else's take on it. Personally, I wanted to say that it's included in those numbers was the absolute fantastic numbers that both Halo and Forza got. I think 25 million Spartans joining playing Halo, which is a little bit odd because that means 5 million people that have Game Pass didn't try it, but still a great number and the best launch of any Halo campaign ever. And 18 million on Forza. Wow. Yeah, I mean,
Major.
Playground Games just continue to show how great of a developer they are. Congratulations
No,
to
they're
them.
not. It's just a driving game. What are you talking
Forza
about?
Horizon
It's
is an amazing driving game, and for someone that doesn't like driving games, I have played a fair few hours into that game. It's more fun with friends.
And Pete is
just
honestly,
amazing.
he's one of the best drivers I've ever seen. 110%.
Piss
Hey,
off.
You cannot beat him.
Out of that 20 million for Halo and that 18 million for Forza and even the 15 million for Sea of Thieves, if you look at how many people actually completed the game, all we did was turn it on because Xbox gamers don't play games, apparently.
That's right. I never. Yeah.
Of course.
Just install it.
And
we
I
wait
haven't
for it to leave
played
Game
1,000 multiplayer games of Halo. I definitely haven't done that. I didn't check my numbers the other day. I do have a life outside of Halo.
I mean, we only rent games anyway. Let's be real.
Yeah, we do. No one buys games.
You just press it on the cloud and then it loads up and then you turn it off. We're
Right,
just
'cause
trying. We're trying to win the Twitter
basically
wars.
Just promote piracy is what we do.
It's why Halo's becoming a TV show because no one plays Halo, so we're going to watch it instead.
No one's interested.
Exactly.
Good
Right.
segue. Good segue, and we are going to definitely segue now. Look,
20
the growth that has come from that revenue and those figures, it really, really is all to do with the content in Game Pass. Not just Halo and Forza, but it was mostly attributed to Halo and Forza. And it's good numbers, man. And it just shows you that what content can do, and that content is king. You provide the content,
and it was
and
all
people
first
come.
party because actually third party dropped because there was the last year they had Cyberpunk, they had Assassin's Creed, they had Watch Dogs,
Sure.
and they actually dropped 4% in third party games. So this is all attributed to first party games, which shows how even more impressive those numbers are.
Good point, dude.
$27 million on Cadius is impressive.
Hey, I didn't get him, mate.
Yeah, I totally didn't.
All right, moving on to the Halo TV show because this is a pretty big one. We were talking about this before the show, and there's some stuff going on in the background which is highly suspect, I would say, but disappointing if true. Look. From my personal opinion, when I watched the show, I was traveling from the UK to Australia, so I was zonked out, jet lagged, and I still jumped up out of my seat and did a little dance in the middle of the airport because that trailer just looked epic. Man, I mean, we saw the Covenant, we saw Master Chief having a fight with those two elites. Man, that was awesome. Like, I got super excited. The story is. I mean, we saw Halsey. There's so much we saw, but the story seems to have a bit of conjecture in the background. And I'm going to hand this over to Pete because Pete, I read the tweets and I had to look into it as well. But Pete has some opinions, and I would like to hear them live.
Yeah, look, I am still excited. I want to get that out there right now. I love Halo, and I am still looking forward to the show, but I am worried with some of the things that they are doing in the background. Now, I think Halo has some of the best lore in any franchise of all time. I don't think it would rival Star Wars, but it's up there. So I don't like how they have Wraith swapped Miranda Keys and Captain Keys because those two cute characters have some of the best scenes ever. Captain Key's death in Halo CE with the Gravemind when Chief is forced to kill him because, he's basically dead and all the information that the Gravemind gets out of him.
Spoilers,
And-
Pete. Spoilers.
Well, it's Halo CE. If you haven't played that, then you should be watching Xbox Infinite. um, and then Miranda Keys, that amazing scene in Halo 3 where she flies with the Pelican to save Sergeant Johnson, and is going to suicide herself and kill Johnson just to save them not being able to activate the ring. These are integral characters to Halo, and I don't like them being changed. They could have just introduced new characters, if they wanted to do that. That's, my first, main problem. And we know that's happening. And then my second problem is just the talk about Halo TV series isn't actually about Master Chief. He's a secondary character, and I'm really worried about that. We saw how that went with Nightfall. Now, Nightfall's a great show, but the best part about that show is the 5-minute scene where Chief comes in and starts fighting the government. That scene is absolutely amazing. I want to see more of that. I think that should be the focus of the show. We've heard a few rumors that the main protagonist of the show is going to be a 16-year-old girl who is a space scavenger and who has incredible power inside her, which she's just learning. That sounds a lot like another franchise that Disney made that didn't go so well for them.
Now,
none of this is confirmed. None of it's confirmed, but the word is out there, and if that does tend to be the case, then I will be disappointed, because that's not what I want of a Halo TV show.
I'll co-sign that.
Oh no, go for it, Umbra, because I know we talked about it a little earlier, and I think all of us are kind of in agreement. Halo, this is it appears to be a very non-canonical approach to something we love that is inherently canonical. And it appears that there is a sort of I'm just trying to find a delicate way to phrase this. There appears to be some creative liberties taken that, at least speaking, and Pandroid, I think we'd all love to get your opinion on it, insofar as you weren't, there when we had the conversation, but I know Umber and Jedi and I are of the same opinion, that there's some things that are definitely not true to Halo, and it's just not authentic to the Halo experience. There's good things too. I think, one of the things that I really liked about it was casting Natasha McKellen as Dr. Halsey, because I can actually remember thinking like 4 or 5 years ago that she was I remember thinking like a TV show after watching Californication, strangely enough, that she was perfect for that. So I saw that and I was like super.
She's a great actress.
She's a fantastic. I know, a wonderfully talented actress. I mean, that's a woman. I think I didn't even know she was British until I was like 19. So. So I like to see them getting talent like her. That's a woman with such talent and range and has a lot under her belt that definitely deserves its accolades and to be lauded. I think we looked at the effects on the elites, the Sangheili. That was great. I think a lot of people missed that little scene where those and certain people thought it was the Flood, where there's worms attacking a guy on a table. Those are actually hunters out of the armor. So it's nice to know that they're going to explore that potentially. So there's things, the effects look great, but if in fact, and that is my worry, Pete, and Umbra, I'm with you too, brother, because I know we talked about it. I'm worried that it'll be a very cinematic experience, but it won't be a Halo cinema. If that makes sense to any of you at all, I'd be curious what Panda would think on that.
Makes sense. But I would say too, just because I was so impressed that you said the Sangheili instead of just saying the elite, the Jerohani are the worms that you're talking about from the elite, from the hunters.
No,
you're right. But it's a brute. The Legolo. That's right. You're right. It's the Legolo. So thank you for correcting me on that. Yeah, it's the Legolo and the Jerohani are the brutes. But I'm with you guys on it. But I do want to hear Panda before I actually chime in.
Issue media like anything, and I mean anything. And I think I agree. I think Halo inherently is Master Chief, and Master Chief is inherently Halo, so there definitely needs that. But I also see an idea of expanding out past us hardcore Halo fans out to the casuals. I mean, you look what happened with Arcane, and you look what happened with other, like The Witcher and so on and so forth. I think if they do it really well, there's so much lore that they can pull from that they could definitely turn this into another phenomenon, which is for the casuals or for the people who just consume media and are like, do I have to play the games to enjoy the content? I would like it if any of you guys have seen The Expanse, something like that.
Where you've got brilliant. I love that.
The Expanse is brilliant, and I would love like Halo, but it done like The Expanse, where you've got all those different storylines progressing, so on and so forth. So
and they intersect.
They intersect, and it's like blows your mind on certain things. And if you've played the Halo games, there are so many things that just blow your mind around where the story went and all the little intricacies that if it's done right, regardless of whether you're a hardcore Halo fan or just coming across Halo for the first time via the TV series, if it's executed correctly, it won't matter what your background is, you will become a Halo fan. So I think like if they can execute it, like I know Arcane's obviously done it in it's animated, but I would really love them to kind of bring in that market, and I think from there Halo will just explode like crazy. But yes, I think if they don't focus enough on Master Chief, you're not going to get the buy-in from the hardcores and word of mouth that you would normally get from us telling other people to watch something and give it a chance, and they'll be like, have you played the games? Do I need to play the games? No, because we're going to be the ones going, you have to watch this. You don't need to have played the games in order to enjoy the content.
And let's be honest, to some degree, the casuals do follow the hardcore.
They definitely do. Yeah.
And they see us, Twittering and on Facebook or wherever you are. I'm on Facebook because I'm old. And they hear this, they hear the buzz, and then they'll jump on board too. And that's a little bit of a little bit of advertising lost if they have done what we are hearing they've done. This go woke, go broke crap that permeates into IPs that are already great and don't need any tweaking. They can just be what
and
they
CBS have done this with Star Trek Discovery, which is a shadow of what Star Trek The Next Gen is, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. I love everything about Next Gen.
Star Trek was the original, one of the original Go Wokes, to be honest. Starting in the 60s, they started with, I can't remember his name, the Captain Chris, and they can't...
Captain Kirk?
No, Chris. There was a Captain Chris before on the pilot. It was a totally different crew, and after the pilot, they got the feedback that the crew was not diverse enough, and they diversified. But they did it in such a way that made sense.
Yeah, but Sulu and Uhura were great characters in their own right, and they're still loved to this day. So I've got no problem with that. Star Trek have always been
absolutely. I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is it's how it's done, and I think that Halo was done in the way that it should have been done. But Umbra, I know that you are a passionate Halo fan, and I would be very interested to hear what you think if you were there.
He's muted.
Umbra's just on the road at the moment, so
yeah, I'll still moving. What was the question though?
The Halo trailer. What we're talking about.
Yeah, what do you think about the Halo TV show?
Sorry about that. Good points all around from you guys and from Panda. It's just I was on the move. Sorry about that. But I'm of the mind of Jedi and Jack here. Honestly, I think so. You guys kind of represented exactly what I feel. I wasn't aware that they re-swapped keys until Jedi and Jack brought it up in the beforehand in the green room. That actually surprised me and disappointed me. And I hate when they take too many liberties like that. I'm a very staunch
original
canon kind of guy. So I feel like race swaps are unnecessary, and I agree with Jedi. Just make new characters.
And
just make new characters.
Gender swaps also. Let's be honest. Like
gender swaps too.
Yeah.
Yep. I feel it's unnecessary. So hearing keys swapped out for Bokeem Woodbine, I mean, as great as actor as he is, that is to be celebrated that they're at least being diverse. I can applaud that. But I just feel like you could have used anybody for Bokeem. You could have made him, it looks like I saw him in armor. I look like I saw him in armor, so it looks like he's going to be a Spartan as well. That's what it looks like. So I'm not sure where they're going to go with that.
No, he's actually confirmed his keys. He's Captain Keys.
That disappoints me. And it's like Jedi pointed out, those characters have such major poignant roles in the mythos. It's kind of hard to like sit there and be like, oh, that's Keys. When 20 years of us playing Halo, we know what Keys looks like. So it's just it's disappointing. And I'll say another thing that I'm sure a lot of people have said, and I don't want to be negative, but I did not like the way Cortana looked. I'm just going to be real with you. Her not being blue.
Yeah, well, look, we
she used to be purple.
we spoke on this at lengths. Like, why is she not naked? You know.
Exactly.
Halo
Take
4
all those
Cortana all
clothes,
the way,
digital
mate.
woman. Take all those clothes off, digital woman. But seriously, it's like
But that is
just
canon.
her having that pink skin. It threw me off. It's like when I saw it, I was like, oh.
I think that is partly because of where we're at now and trying to get buy-in from everyone. Like, I'm the opposite. I don't care how Cortana looks as long as her voice is accurate enough for me to go, that's Cortana.
Well, I do
if
like
the
that
voice
John
was-
Taylor's
yeah,
been on
yeah,
to it.
exactly.
Yeah.
If the voice was
I
on,
do like that
you would
part.
have no buy-in from me. I would
You
be
know
like,
what? I do
Taylor's
like that
been on
part.
Arrival.
Well, then how do you feel
And
about
they did that for
Fable, they
Cortana.
did
Why
that.
didn't they do that
Master
for
Chief.
Master Chief
Exactly.
and have Steve Downs as the voice?
They
She's
should have
behind the
Downs.
mask.
Yeah.
And it's not right. It's
Exactly.
already not right in the trailer. Like when he grabs the thing on the Halo, he's like, I saw something, and it just doesn't sound that gruff Master Chief. Like,
I will say
disagree.
this. I agree with you, but I do think that Pablo sounded really good as him. I will say,
Yeah.
despite not sounding like, the legendary Steve Downs, he still sounded pretty good. I was like, I'm not that mad at that. But seeing Cortana, one, not be digital fully and not, be blue, or as she started off in Halo CE, and 2, purple, it just threw me off. She's been blue more often than purple, so I'm going to say blue. So her not being blue and digitized, it just kind of like y'all had it, but you could just,
I think Pablo will do a good job. I'm glad. I actually think that they brought Jen Taylor on. They were actually going to get Natasha McElhone to actually voice Cortana at the start, and they changed direction and brought Jen Taylor on. I don't know, maybe after the trailer they can do something similar and bring Steve Downs on. I don't know if it was too expensive. I don't know what the deal was, but I think Pablo will do a good job. So
what do you think about the rumor?
It'll be difficult.
What do you think about the rumor that Master Chief
that Chief will be beat up by that girl?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been debunked. I can 100% tell you that has been debunked. What we all saw, because we read that and we collectively shit the world's biggest brick. I understand. So, believe it or not, that little, it almost looked like a bungled 4chan type page or whatever, where you could read it at the bottom, and it talks about how she's going to save Master Chief. I think she will be an integral character because there has to be a regular human that just sort of embodies the human condition, because that's ultimately what the show has to have. And I think you can take a few creative liberties and do that, but the idea that it's going to be some weird uber woke moment where at the bottom it said stick it to the Patriot, that has been debunked. So if that was the next,
that's good to know, because when I read that online, I was annoyed. I'm like, come on, y'all, don't do that. Don't do the whole pandering thing. Like, you can make the lady strong as well, but don't do it.
Here's the folly that I think a lot of these films fall into, and that Marvel has done so well. They already had deep, rich lore and stories to pull from, and that's exactly what the recent Marvel series did all the way out to the Infinity. They pulled from the lore and they pulled from the stories of the comic books. They're already good stories. They obviously need to be rejigged for film, and that's really all that needs to happen here. We don't need to see a new story or a changing of the story. What we need to see is what we've already seen in film and just done well.
Right.
So
when is the timeline going to be? Like, because I keep hearing this word, the silver timeline, where they're going to take liberties. Like, and I mean, obviously Cortana's in it, and we know Chief meets Cortana in CE. So,
this is CE. So it's
right
pretty much
before
CE.
It's right before CE. Yeah, it takes place right before CE. Because they haven't discovered the first Halo yet.
There's parts of CE in, so the part of the timeline of CE is in the series. So
okay, so they do play directly CE.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
follow
they do.
they follow into CE as well. So I mean,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That I was unaware of.
well, I mean, you look at the trailer. He's discovering the Halo ring. There's something there, and they need to go after it. So I mean, this series will fold into, if we make it to a second one, will definitely fold into CE. I can 110% say that from looking at the timeline. And then, yeah, it might come off the back of Reach. That would be awesome. Oh, that was a great game. Anyone who shits on that game, I shit on you.
Oh,
You're blocked if
I'm
you
out
hate
close,
that game.
literally.
Sauce.
Yeah, look, at the time, people just wanted more Master Chief, and you can understand that. But in terms of gameplay and what it brought to Halo, it was absolutely amazing.
Oh,
mean,
and the
what-
story was amazing. And look, the story was amazing in Reach, and you know, Pete, because I played through it with you for the first time. But you know, then we played through Guardians. Wasn't amazing. You know,
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
it was
I
too
agree.
ambitious.
Hey, Rick,
Guardians.
you're gonna have to play through Infinite with me once it comes through the co-op, man.
oh well, 110% be doing that.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be four-player co-op still, Umbra.
Oh yeah.
I still have
Just
my
four
fingers
player,
crossed.
then absolutely. We gotta have you in there, Jedi, with us. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd love to play it with you guys, mate.
Going to be absolute fire that game when they give us co-op. But we're going to move forward because look, I'm selling my Xbox, both of them. I don't know about you guys, but I read an article that just convinced me that I am on the wrong track and that I should hold on to my non-existent PlayStation that I do not own and doesn't gather dust holding open my door.
Yep.
Now, whoever wrote this is a certified genius. I'm just gonna
Oh, 100%.
just gonna
That
give
was
you
raw
a quick.
intellect.
I'm not gonna verbatim read it, but I'm just gonna give you a quick run through of what this was. 7 reasons not to buy an Xbox. Now, the first point was, we'll go through it point by point, discuss this. Was no console exclusives, and as we know, we just don't have any games on the Xbox. It's
Well, we don't play games anyway, so it's irrelevant.
so we don't need them. Absolutely.
No, we don't. No, not at all. It's a Blu-ray player.
So Panda, you don't have a TV, and it doesn't affect you really because there's nothing to play anyway, right?
Sorry, yeah, exactly. I was still on mute. Yeah, there's nothing to play. Right. Nothing if it doesn't affect me at all. No.
Pete, the lack of exclusives, is it been bothering you lately? Ooh. Pete's out. Umbra? Umbra's out too.
I mean, I think-
Jack.
It'd be funny if I was out. It'd be funny if I was out too, wouldn't it? I'm here.
I was going to say,
I'm
can we
here.
interest you in our Lord and Savior, Jim Ryan?
No, I'm sorry. So the question was basically about.
7
I'm sorry. What
points.
was the
Why
question?
not to buy an Xbox?
Yes,
Because
this-
we don't
Back
play
late,
games.
so I
Seven-
missed the question, so I didn't really have much to say.
7 reasons not to buy an Xbox. Oh right, yeah. Sorry, I just saw you. Missed
Oh, that trash article, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know much more to say about it than to know that it's obviously trash. I mean, who takes it serious? When I read it or heard about it and such, and I looked at it, and I watched Dealer's video on it, he debunked pretty much all the points, and then I saw other videos on it. It was just like, okay,
What do you mean?
So this was just-
What do you mean you debunked all the points? They're
Yeah,
all
I
like
mean, you
good,
got no Returnal.
solid points, man.
yeah.
Oh,
All solid points that we need to get rid of our Xbox. I mean, it's one silly thing after another. It was just clickbait. So I ignored it largely.
Okay, so number 1 is there are no console exclusives. So let's go through that one, shall we?
Yeah, do that, Pete. I want to hear you. What do you think, Pete? Are you sad about the
So
lack of exclusives?
this was after the Activision acquisition. Not to mention the Bethesda acquisition. So we don't have the Elder Scrolls or Fallout or Doom or Wolfenstein or Call of Duty or the other, 50 IPs that I could pretty much name. Not to mention the fact that we already had Halo
Whoa,
Gears.
this is starting to sound like a monopoly.
Yeah,
Hang on.
this is fake news.
The number 2 is proprietary expandable storage.
Now listen, this
Yes,
is it.
but we don't need to open up our console, get a screwdriver out, make sure that it's got a heatsink attached, make sure that it's the correct specs to be able to work correctly. All you need to do
Mansplaining
is
this
buy it and plug and play.
No, but look, hang on a minute. I'm going to stop you there, and I'm going to stop you there, and I'm going to say this, and forgive me. None of that is really difficult to do. That's a pretty easy thing to do. to open up your console, get the right game card, unless you're a complete and utter total retard. Put the damn thing in. It's not too hard. I think it's full screen.
Right. It's really
Right.
easy to go out and spend $200 to play Bug Snacks.
But but hang on. And proprietary, and we know that proprietary expandable storage is bad because of PlayStation, and this is why they've done what they've done. And I completely agree with this one single point. Actually, there's a couple I agree with in the article. You can't dismiss the entire article. There is actually a couple of good points.
Xbox actually give you a warranty on that expandable storage as well, whereas PlayStation don't. It's just it's a better way to do it, and we did hear that
Warranty
they
on
are
your
going to
console,
be more
is what you mean, yeah.
third-party expandable storage devices coming, other than Seagate. At the moment. Now, we did think that it was a year, but seeing we haven't seen any at the moment, I'm guessing that they have it for longer than a year.
This is an interesting point, because who wants to create a single product that only works with a single product that is to proprietary specs? So I think it would be difficult.
Well, it depends on how many Xboxes are sold.
That's for their own, like,
Nintendo.
Equipment. And don't shit on Apple. Everything coming into this podcast is from an Apple.
Well, coming back to the gaming, it's Nintendo do it all the time.
Yeah, but they own that hardware. When you talk about Microsoft aren't making the hardware, they're trying to get third-party hardware producers to produce their proprietary hardware for one specific particular console, for one specific particular product. That is eons ahead and harder than just like
A universal, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, look, it's a console. People buy consoles for the ease of use, and the plug-and-play aspect is just a better way to do it than PlayStation's alternative.
Oh,
regardless of price.
I don't
Look at the way we used to game years ago. When you would go and take your console that weighed like nothing, like a Nintendo 64 or your PS1 or whatever, and you would go around to your friend's house and you would take all your cartridges around and you would play
Memory
games that
cards,
way.
yeah.
Memory cards, all of that around with you. Thinking of it this way, who wants to carry that gigantic PS5 round to your friend's house because your SSD can't be pulled out? Like, if I go to someone else's house and they've got an Xbox and I've got games I'm already installed, I can just pull out my SSD and plug it straight into the back of their console. So there's arguments on both sides, but we're at a point where gaming is, you shouldn't need to open your console to take your SSD out and take those games over to someone else's house, unless you literally want to take a physical gigantic PS5 using a forklift to another person's house.
Fantastic point, Panda. Well said. Yep. Taking your games over to your friends' houses has never been easier with this simple, quick, easy solution, regardless if it is only by one company.
Yeah.
I mean, I take my PS5 everywhere. I literally support the devs.
In the backpack. Look, I'm going to have to debunk that here as well. We're going to have a war. We're going to have a war on Infinite. Look, you don't have LAN parties these days. I mean, you might do. It might be at an internet cafe, but that really doesn't happen. Like, how often do you pick your console up, throw it in your backpack, and head off? I mean, look, I did. Yeah. I bought a Series S to travel around the world at great length and against my will. But I did, and I had to. But other than that, I can't see a reality in which I need to leave my house with my Xbox console because we're online. So I've got to debunk that and say that, look, I think this is a bad choice on Xbox's part. I really do. I think that there should have been maybe not a solution as far as PS5, and maybe it's not a solution as far as Xbox, but somewhere in the middle. I don't know what that looks like, but I can absolutely. There's good points for
but
both.
If you don't have your games on your friend's console, you're going to have to completely download them when you get there, and I mean that's just not feasible. So if you could just take the hard drive with you, your games come with you, and you don't need to carry anything around. Yeah, well, that means that you'd need to get your friend to download games. What if he's got a cap on the limit of, download that he's got? He doesn't want to waste it to come over.
I mean, mechanical hard drive?
Your mechanical hard drive. Why don't you just use that?
What happens when you drop a mechanical hard drive?
Wait, is that like
What
is
happens
that
when
like
you
Don't
OG energy?
drop the hard drive, Butterfingers. All right.
I know, but that's the reality. Is if there
is,
is more
it is,
risk
you're
when you're moving your storage, and it's safer to move your storage on an SSD
There's
than it is
nothing
on
wrong.
a mechanical hard drive.
There's nothing wrong with more risk. We need as much risk as we can get. So we'll move on. We'll move on because I don't think that we're going to come to terms on this one.
Okay, so number 3 is it does not support VR.
Exactly. Again, I think.
And I know you like this one, Riskit. I think that we'll go with you on this one, Riskit. What do you think about Xbox and VR? Because I know that you want it.
I think it's a big misstep. I think it's possible. I don't think it's that hard for them to do. They already got their fingers in those pies. Why not bring it across to the Series X? It's completely capable of doing it. Maybe if the Series S can't handle it, but bring it over to Series X and give us the option of having it. I understand that Phil said he didn't want it wired in the living room. I get that. But one wire does not ruin an experience. You can hang that bad boy from the ceiling. It's exactly, see, Steph. What if you drop your phone? Just don't do it.
People do it though.
This is
People do it.
This is again, I think, a misstep on Xbox's part, but hopefully one that they learned from. And here's the thing: every time we got to be careful here, not to tread in the PlayStation pond of acceptance. Like every time that Xbox has done something that we don't agree with, we are vocal and we let them know. Remember the Live debacle when they wanted to charge us, I don't know, $1,000 a year or something for bloody Live. We call them out, and Xbox gamers have always called out Microsoft on the things that they have messed up, and we should continue to do so. And to have the option for VR is something that I want, and I bet I'm not alone. Jack,
Can I play devil's advocate?
go for it, Jack.
I'm curious. Oh, so here's the thing: VR has not, and we're all aware of it. They have been attempting in one format or another, right, for roughly around like 30 years to promote sort of, even in its earliest iterations, right, like in Tokyo Internet Cafes in 1989, to promote some form of VR. I'm not saying it cannot be a lucrative endeavor, particularly with, all the trappings of modern, technology and things of that sort. I am saying that if you look at it financially, right, because ultimately while we play the games, we're not the shareholders, right? And so they could give the proverbial two shits, about what we. So what I'm saying, it is not yet in 30 years, right, proved to be a particularly lucrative endeavor, a cash generating financially, I wonder, right? I think the smart move would be to see how Sony's, VR projects go. I think you brought it up a little earlier with that Call the Mountain, and how they're going to be moving into the Horizon or the Horizon franchise for that. I think it would be, I don't want to say like premature. I think it would be the risk reward factor at this junction, financially speaking, to devote that much time and resources to an initiative like that. I think, I'm not saying it can't work. I think the risk at the moment when there's so many things going on and Game Pass is the focus, and obviously, there would be some VR variant of Game Pass, obviously, but and with, acquisition season probably still underway, I think it's too many eggs and the basket's a little small. I know Umbra and I have talked about it, so I'd be curious to see what Umbra says on that.
I'm exactly in line with you. So
Yeah, and I agree with you guys as well.
I was just about to say you too, Pete. Yep.
Yeah, your thoughts are my thoughts on that, Jack. And the thing is, it's like, beside it being, like you said, so much going on, it's like, why do they need to focus on that when they done the focus research on it, and most Xbox gamers absolutely do not care about VR. It's just a niche thing. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that they should never have it or ever approach it, but it's like, go to where you need it first, I think, right? And right now, they needed content. So, like you said, absolutely. First, the focus is IP. Everything else can come after.
Yeah.
That's exactly. We got to feed the beast known as Game Pass. So that's the most major focus. Everything else can come after. And they have the capability to add VR very easily with the components that's the Xbox Series X has and the S has. So it's not like it's something that's, incapable of happening. It's just the demand has to be there. The demand is not there. So while there's no need to argue for that, really, I think, in any real case. I think it's just some people look at the fact that Sony has it, so they say, oh, we lack that, so it's a negative. I don't think it is. It's just not what our thing is about.
Because we don't know if it's even going to pan out for them. I know Pete had something on that about, I think it was like, what was it, Pete? We were talking about it on Halo, like maybe a week and a half ago.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, I think that the game might have changed slightly. I don't think that Xbox needed to focus on VR, but now that they do have the amount of developers working for them at Activision, 10,000, and Bethesda, I think maybe they could put some more talent onto it now. But if you're looking at before those two acquisitions, so if they basically wanted to get it ready for the start of this generation or sometime in this generation, then I think it would have been a massive waste of resources. I think they needed to do exactly what Umbra said and focus on feeding the beast, which is Game Pass, and by all accounts, it looks like that has paid off. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves.
Look, I can't disagree with you on feeding the beast that is Game Pass, but what I can most definitely say is that resources, what are resources to Microsoft? They have the resources. They've got R&D teams sitting on hardware in the background, like just working on the next thing, working on the next cloud, working on the metaverse. And I do
by resources, I mean the amount of developers that they have able to develop.
Yeah, but when you're
games.
talking about resources, that's all money. So when you talk about resources, it all comes back to money. So developers, studios, time to develop, cost to develop, that's all money. Same as R&D for the next console. They said at the start of this generation, they are already R&Ding the next console. So why wouldn't they be R&Ding VR in the background? I mean, I'm sure that they've got big enough wallets, they can just get a small team, like the original Xbox was, a small team, set them aside and go, hey, take the HTC, I believe it was, they helped to work on, the HTC headset, and see how we can make this work with Xbox. I don't think it's a massive stretch, and I think it's a misstep, but it's not a misstep as in it can never happen, and it will never happen. But it's just what
I don't think they'll have proprietary tech. I don't think they'll make their own. I think if they do it, they'll go down that route and allow Oculus, allow HTC Vive, allow these third-party people to come in if they can get it to work. And I'm sure they could. I mean, it's basically a mini PC power, isn't it?
There's another route for you right there. Don't spend the money on it. Have the third party spend the money on making it work for your console. They would, because again, that's against my argument with storage. That's they've got a massive market, and then they've got a market of I don't know how many consoles that the Xbox has sold. Say 12 million, I think was the number, the last rumored number. That's 12 million more sales. And say if you get you sell each one at $600 a pop, and you get a quarter of that. That's a decent chunk of change. That's worth doing.
What's the buy-in of VR on PlayStation?
Yeah.
I think, a 5%, maybe, if that.
I don't think it's 5%. I think it's like in a 2 percentile. Like they have, I
think Umbra's got it.
2 million sales or something like that. Yeah, it's not that crazy.
Yeah.
Look at cost to entry though. Cost to entry into that is going to be huge. Like we know how expensive PSVR 1 was. What's 2 going to look like? And I 100% agree that Xbox has done the right thing and focused where it should have focused, because 1X was
you're all blocked.
VR.
That's it.
Yeah.
VR was Xbox One X was VR capable. However, that was not an avenue that Phil wanted to go down. He's 100% right. The technology is not at a point which actually benefits console gamers around ease of use. Like, yes, it's going to have one cable on the new PSVR, which is going to be huge, but I think third-party developers, because all those games are running on x86 hardware, and that's what Microsoft's bread and butter is. So I think you're going to look at, if they do go down the VR road, third-party headset, because they don't have to spend that R&D. You've already got, in Bethesda, companies or developers that have been working on VR titles, with Skyrim going to VR, then there was Doom VR, and so on and so forth. So, I just don't see a market at the moment, especially in this generation, where gamers are outright crying for VR unless PlayStation changes our minds and does something absolutely amazing and drastic in that field for Xbox to go, we need to do VR. I think we're probably going to look at the fact that these consoles are VR capable if it ever changes, but I reckon maybe next gen is when we're most likely going to see VR. But you need a good IP to really get VR to take off. You need that IP that's going to get everyone in. And I reckon like Pokemon, I know that it's not an Xbox, but Pokemon is a huge IP. Like you saw how Pokemon Go takes off and like everything. Like if Pokemon was in VR, that would be like the biggest IP ever. And
definitely block.
VR would be done.
I think Oculus tried to do it last Christmas by selling their Quest or Oculus something for $300 to reduce that entry point. And a lot of people picked it up, and not a lot of people are still playing it.
Well, I get motion sick so easily, so it's not really my cup of tea.
Well, if you look at the new PSVR 2, that's got basically what we were talking about in a few podcasts back with Asa. It actually has a tracker that follows your pupils. So wherever your eyes you look, which is a big issue with VR. Why people get motion sickness is because the world doesn't quite move with you as it would normally move.
Right.
And it doesn't focus to where you are looking. It's completely in focus the entire time, which is not how your eyes work. So look, there's things being worked on in the background to solve the motion sickness issue, but we do have to move on because this is a fire.
Solve it, no VR. That solves the motion sickness issue. Solved it, done.
So I'm just going to put the rest of them into one because it is taking a little bit to get through this. So it says the PS5 has better games, the Series S is underpowered, and the controller lacks innovation. So, I mean, what do you think about that, Risket?
I think they're all pretty solid points. As I said, I'm selling I've sold my Xbox already. I sold it for $2,000, so I'll be buying another one. So
honestly, before we go on, I want to say this really quick because I missed out on a few of the points as I was kind of like indifferent to this topic, and I'm doing things right now. I'm going to just address the 3 things really quick. Number 10, the Xbox Series X controller lacks excitement. Such a ridiculous argument to make because they're talking about, it still uses AA batteries. That argument is dead and gone. They talk about the DualSense controller. Right, but they talk about the DualSense controller and all that. Well, Xbox is so far ahead already as far as aesthetics and the feel of the controller in your hand already. It didn't need much improvement. So to even argue that is unnecessary. The thing that they needed most were the D-pad being improved, which they did. And I guess you can argue about haptic feedback later on. But they can also add that later. But I think as a controller, I still think it's the best in gaming. Now, number 9, PS5 has better audio. That's right there's a lie. They talk about head-related transfer function, and say the Xbox doesn't have this or that, and it's because it's not consuming CPU power and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Xbox has Dolby Atmos, and it sounds excellent. Any argument to the contrary is null and void for me.
It's the standard. It is the standard for sound. We were talking about this the other day.
Absolutely.
Dolby is the standard for sound. And the only reason that PlayStation doesn't have it is because they don't want to spend the money because they are cheap.
There you go. So I'm not even entertaining that argument. But I'll say number 8, PS5 has a head start. Why is that even in the article? Why is it in the article? Who cares about them having a head start as far as selling more? Like, what does that mean? Why we would need an Xbox? Well, they sold more so far, so you don't need an Xbox for that reason. That's just dumb. Power consumption and heat, they're both efficient and environment friendly. So this is not even a real argument. They talk about it doesn't go over 250 watts and all of that. It means the gaming will increase your electricity bill. So that's really the thing you're arguing about, $26 more a year. Yes, that's dumb. No VR, we talked about that already, so we can go on to cross-gen exclusives. If they're going to argue that, they already failed because PlayStation is going to be cross-gen for a while.
Well, the other thing there is the PS has better games, is what they said.
That's true.
That's a...
That's not subjective at all.
That is subjective.
No, it's 100%
not at all.
Yes, it is.
Why? I'm telling you why. Because you can't buy the $273 collector's edition of The Last of Us 2 remastered director's cut premium gold
for the 5th time.
That's why you can't. Exactly, you can't get that on Xbox,
Yeah, look,
and then obviously no bug snaps.
It's subjective. Everyone knows I'm quite clear about my favorite game of all time. It is God of War. I agree with IGN. That is my game of all time. But that's subjective. If you can't put in an article, a factual article where you're attempting to be factual, they have better go. Because you don't know what people like, man. That's why Nintendo's so massive, because they make games that people love. That's why PlayStation has done as well as they have done, because there's games on that system that people love. That's why the Xbox 360 and the Series X and S are doing so well, because they are bringing games to the table that people love. That's subjective, and it's bullshit. Panda?
Yeah, so let's
Absolutely.
move on to the Series
But the
S
whole-
is underpowered. And especially
Yeah,
considering
that's
the
coming up.
fact that Dying Light 2 is only 1080p, 30 frames a second on the Series S. Is it holding back this generation, Umbra?
No, it's not holding.
No, I don't think so. I think people love to run with that argument. They're trying so bad. They're trying so hard to try to discount the Series S at every turn. But what's I always find funny is that when they entered the market with the Series S and X, they made sure to have an understanding that the most it would do output wise is 1440p. It's the budget next gen console. So why are we even arguing about 1080p for it or it having 30 frames per second on certain games? It's the budget option.
That's
Besides
developer.
that,
That's where developers put their
Yeah,
money
and
and time. That's all it is. Developers put their
That's
money and
cool.
time into optimizing these games. So when you talk about Dying Light
Well,
being 30 frames per second,
that is also true.
yeah, he blamed
But
it
the
on the GPU, but it is not correct for him to blame it on the GPU. That just means
That's
they
what
haven't put the
it is.
time in because it's hard. It is a hard thing to do. It makes it harder. It doesn't.
But
It's not.
Just to add, by the way, I always find the argument hilarious because they say the S is holding things back, but the Series S has more games at 120 frames per second than the PlayStation 5 does.
I was just going to say that, Umbra. Well said.
Exactly.
And then the problem is they're using Dying Light as their litmus, right? Like, so Dying Light 2, which I'm currently playing, and it's a real shit your pants simulator. It's great. I actually do honestly recommend it. No, it's good. The problem is this: if you read the news today about Dying Light, there's a patch coming out where you're going to get a 60 frames per second VRR mode on exactly for the Series X, but you're not going to get that for the PS5. So if you want to use Dying Light to sort of bag on a console, then quite frankly, the same logic would dictate that the PS5 is holding this generation back.
Good point.
Yeah, look, it
And that's-
absolutely
I mean-
would. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And he came out and said that the developer came out and said it's a GPU issue. He didn't say it couldn't be done. What he later said in the tweets, if you follow the thread down, was that they haven't put the time into optimizing for the Series X. There's a lot of places this game has to go. It has to go to PS5. It has to go to Series X. It has to go on every PC spec that they can make it run on. That's a lot of places to put your game. You got to go to. It's on PS4. It's cross-gen. It's got to go to Xbox One. That's a lot of work you got to do. It's not just a small amount of time. So they gotta pick the
Divide
places
and conquer.
exactly where they put their money and fix those issues later on.
But I mean, looking at Dying Light 2 and that comment that was said and people were jumping on the bandwagon, you've got to remember Dying Light 2 has been in a bit of development hell. And you also have to remember that regardless of whether you're talking about the Xbox Series S, the Xbox Series X, or the PS5, that game is not taking full advantage of next-gen CPUs. That game is not designed for that purpose. I mean, it's not even designed to take advantage of the multi-threading in the CPUs. All they would really need to do is lower the resolution slightly and really take advantage of that CPU. People are forgetting that we are at the beginning of this current gen. Games are only going to get better. Developers are going to get better. But they're so focused on which plastic box and this is better than the other that they're just forgetting the basic facts of what happens when you start a brand new generation, when you've got cross-gen games and the game was initially designed on last-gen hardware. Yes, they can up the resolution, they can do other things, but it's not designed to take advantage of RDNA feature sets at all.
No, and they're not being put into use yet. So
no.
And look, and Dying Light's been being developed. I think it's 3.5 years. That was in development.
Yeah, the first trailer we saw was 2018, so we're at almost the 4-year mark.
Been delayed quite a bit.
Yeah. So it's 3.5 years. I think it took to develop that game, and you're talking way back in the last gen, before we even knew that. Well, we knew there was rumors, but before we even knew that this current gen was coming and when it was coming and what it was all about, and they definitely did not have the GDK at that time to develop with. So, we're still on the
optimization for Dying Light 2 is coming. I don't have any doubt that the Series X will hit 1080p 60. I'm guessing that a patch that will come. I think development hell is the main reason for it.
Series S?
Sorry.
Yep.
Yes, Series S, sorry. I think that the controller doesn't need to innovate because it's the greatest controller that's ever made. I think if they do put adaptive triggers in there, it's going to make that controller heavier, and I think the weight of it is pretty much perfect. And the subjective one, PS5 has better games. So yeah, I mean, Halo isn't on there, Gears isn't on there. So yeah, that's just a stupid comment. Or should we wait for the
next iteration?
new iteration of the Xbox to come out?
Well, this suggests
another
that there will
moronic
be,
comment.
This suggests there'll be a mid-gen refresh, which is not needed yet.
Exactly.
We're not
exactly.
there.
The only reason there was a mid-gen refresh last generation is because 4K TVs became more prominent in the marketplace.
Hey, I gotta laugh.
Refreshes. The PlayStation gamers were because they had a weaker console. They started asking for a mid-gen refresh. PS5 Pro.
Just to point out, I have to laugh a little bit because I'm looking at number one and it's talking about the PS5 exclusives, which Pete touched on. But like you said too, Risk, it's subjective. A lot of the games that PS5 has, I don't care for. Or so to be fair, but they have an image of Gran Turismo 7, and it says you won't see Gran Turismo 7 or Gran Turismo Sport on the Xbox consoles or even PC. I don't want Gran Turismo 7 when I have Forza Horizon 5 and Forza Motorsport coming later this year. They're better franchises than Gran Turismo, and I say that without any shame. I say that wholeheartedly. They are a better series than Gran Turismo, completely. The only thing that Gran Turismo 7 showed that I actually cared for was its photo mode, and replay options looked pretty solid. That's about it. Other than that, as a racer, you're not going to tell me, you're never going to convince me that Gran Turismo is a better racer than Forza. At best, they're comparable, but better? Nah. I don't need Gran Turismo for that. So that's why I say this whole thing, they argue that is silly. Those exclusives. Okay, if you're arguing it's not going to be on PC, that only applies to those who play on PC as well. Many people who are going to buy these systems are casual people. They don't have PCs like that, or if they do, they're not gaming on them, right? So what does that matter to them when you argue about exclusivity? As far as they're concerned, all the games they buy are exclusive because they don't have a PC. It's a tired argument that needs to go away.
But it never will.
And yet never will.
Exactly. Never will. But I agree with you on the Forza v GT, but I completely disagree. You cannot compare the latest Forza 5 to GT. They are not comparable. And what we have heard from Motorsport, I think 10 is it? We're up to
8.
8. Yeah, the latest Motorsport. I'm not a car racing guy. I'm definitely not a motorsport guy. But after 5, I might be. From what we've heard about what they're doing with the real-time physics of the game, man, that game sounds like it's out of control. Amazing. And I didn't hear any of that from GT7. All I saw was pretty cars.
I want to just make a really quick point when they're talking about PS5 has better games. I completely disagree with that. I think PS4 has better games because all of the games that are really coming out, at the moment are cross-gen.
Oh, she's unblocked.
That are exclusive to next-gen hardware. So the PS4 has better exclusives than a PS5. So why buy a PS5 at this point, other than frame rates? But that's just an argument that you can pull it apart by a child.
Yeah, again, I think everybody's made the point. It's very subjective. I know for a fact because of how much I've talked to Umbra. Umbra and I play the same games, 100%. We like our RPGs, we like our shooters, we like to blow shit up, and So I think so. For you take a guy, and I think Riskin and Peter more or less, But I know for a fact Umbra and I have discussed this.
Oh, you've never seen me on Halo. I don't play that game. It's terrible.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
The grass physics are just absolutely. No, you keep going.
Have you not seen the Steam numbers? Halo's dead.
Yeah,
it's fine. Halo's gone. It's dead. It died. But we've all seen the numbers. That's what King Thrash told me. So it's got to be true. But So the issue is
his name wrong. His name is King Thrush.
Yeah, well, oh my God, he is the most you're gonna love him. His content's great. It's fucking volcanic.
You gotta check out the one where they talk about the volcano way.
Foliage.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, you know about it.
Yeah, how do you fuck up English and geology in one goddamn sentence? You know, like it's impressive. Anyhow, I don't want to devote any time to that ass clown. Point being is that I when they talk about better games, if you like very cinematic, third-person, single-player games, then yeah, you're looking at things like Horizon, which, you know, obviously Risky thought was a creative abortion from hell, but or Ghost of Tsushima, or you're looking at, you know, The Last of Us, you know, Part 2, 7, remat, whatever the fuck it is now. But Uncharted's a great one. But that's fine. But it's almost, it feels bad because, so the reason I don't play on PlayStation as much, being a PS4 gamer last gen, overwhelmingly, I find the game selection to be monolithic. I do, and I never really grasped that before. But then I started playing more Xbox this gen. I got my Series X, and I'm looking at like RPGs, shooters, strategy games. It feels like when you play Xbox, you get a much greater sort of diversity of gameplay experiences. And I think like 100%, you know, and so
you don't have that $60 buy into these games, so you can just try them at your leisure.
Exactly, it's more beer money. I love it, and so, you know, I think guys like me and Umbra that want to play more than just not that we have anything against it. I know Umbra and I both love Uncharted. We've talked about that. You know, we want to play more than a third, and I'm not using it because I know it's a very fanboyish argument to slander PlayStation with that, right? Obviously, PlayStation is great content, but there is this overwhelming trend. You get third-person, cinematic, narrative-driven single-player games, which are great, and then you get their remasters for an extra $40 6 months later, you know, and I'm sure those are great. But with Xbox, you get a much greater at a price point of absolutely zero. So when they say games are better, yeah, I mean, if you like those games, then subjectively speaking, that's the console for you. But if you don't want to have a monolithic library of you know clone-ish experiences, I personally think, and I never would have thought I would have said this 2 years ago, I think Xbox has better games. I do, and that's subjective to me, and you know, Umber, and you know, well, probably everyone here. But I think that argument is just, it's so trite. It's because you can't speak for everyone with the console.
Okay, so we've got that pretty much covered. Who do you? I want to ask this person. This is just a little bit off topic, but it's a question that I want to ask, and I'll put it out to the chat as well. Who do you think has a better year this year in terms of gaming? So Nintendo's got Splatoon 2, they've got Breath of the Wild 2, they've got Pokemon Arceus, it's amazing games. PlayStation has God of War, Horizon Forbidden West,
Basically calls it
Horizon Tokyo, GT7, and Halo. Yeah, Halo's got Stalker, they've got Scorn, they've got Redfall, and they've got Starfield. So I'll go to Red Dead Panda for this.
Hard when you're talking about exclusivity, because I am a massive Nintendo fan, so all there for Breath of the Wild. All there for that. I think if you're looking at it as a gamer now, for the way I look at what I choose to play and where I choose to play, I look at, yes, those cornerstone games that I know I'm going to love and the RPGs and such. But then I also look at the games that I want to play in between that are going to keep me going back and using my console other than just streaming services like Netflix and Disney Plus and so on and so forth. So for me, and cost is a huge thing. Overall, I just think for me as a gamer personally, Xbox. Because I know that in between any of those games, I don't have to fork out like $60, $70, or it would be like $100 in New Zealand dollars out on a brand new game. I'm going to supplement that with maybe spending the odd game on one of those big Nintendo games for my Switch. And then everything else is going to be on Xbox's side, whether I'm playing an RTS on my PC or I'm playing a multiplayer game.
I get that, Panda. But what if Game Pass wasn't a thing and you had to pay full price for all your games?
Oh,
don't talk about hell like that.
Don't. 'Cause I'm just honestly like,
I can't go back.
I
can't go back.
Yeah. For me, I know this is going to sound controversial, guys, but I love Zelda so much that I would probably be Nintendo for me. Sadly, but
They have to put a roll mechanic
Zelda
in for
is-
Breath of the Wild. It's not Zelda without the roll mechanic.
Let me ask you this.
No.
Let me ask you this, Panda. What
Yep.
do you think of? And this answer is very near and dear to my heart. What do you think of the Ocarina of Time?
It's my second favorite Zelda game.
Is it one
Wind
of
Waker
your
is-
all-time favorite games?
Wind Waker would be one of my all-time.
That's
favorite
my
games.
number 1 and 2 as well. GameCube kids, fuck yeah.
Yeah, that is my one. That's hard because I am a massive Mass Effect fan as well. But I think one of my all-time, if Fable was coming out this year, hands down Xbox, because Fable is my game that screams Xbox to me. Is Fable.
I love
I
Fable.
grew
Yeah.
up playing Fable.
Fable's great. Yeah.
So I don't care what happens the moment Fable comes out. I'm Xbox for that's just going to be all I'll be caring about that whole year.
Oh.
Yeah.
But for
Patting
this
dogs,
year,
farting,
for this
falling in
yeah.
I'm
love.
with you on that one.
kicking chickens,
E3 is gonna be great.
getting STDs, all of that fun stuff in Fable.
It started all
Oh, I
that.
thought-
It started all the getting drunk in RPGs and doing the stumbling around, all that stuff. That all came from Fable. That was the
good versus
Fable,
bad
Fable
mechanics.
invented herpes?
Getting married, getting an STD.
You
I
could
mean,
get
how good
STD.
is it?
Yeah, there was that achievement in Fable 3, like Henry VIII, get married 5 times and kill two of your spouses.
Yes, I got that. I got that.
Oh,
I was like, I'm
Oh.
tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this chick. She's dead.
Yeah,
please don't take that away from the new Fable. Please don't. It's so
Please
Monty
let me kill
Python.
my wife and children. That's all I want.
I'm going to go back just to throw this out there. I think my favorite Zelda of all time will always be A Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo. Just want to throw that out there.
Oh wow,
You
that
got
is
me
going
by a
back,
few
mate.
Years. Yeah, you got. I don't think I existed.
yeah.
I mean, all
Yeah.
this. The question depends on delays, right? Like delays are the big thing, right? So, if we find out that Starfield's coming out in March and not November, yeah, that. I mean, ultimately that does swing it. But then again, if we find out that God of War's coming out in December or in April instead of the September 30th. Which it's currently, it's not confirmed, but that's what it's currently earmarked for, is September 30th of this calendar year. It all depends on delays. So it sucks that we can't say Stalker, because if you were able to throw a game like Stalker in there, I think that's one of my big ones. That would overwhelmingly sway me. I'm still going to say Xbox because I think Starfield is going to be the second coming of Christ.
Starfield's gonna kill it, yeah.
One of my main points to this whole argument or this conversation is how good is this year as a gamer? You've got God of War 2, which is one of the greatest games of all time. You've got Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, which is one of the greatest games of all time. And you've got a new franchise by Bethesda, which they haven't done in 25 years coming this year. And for each platform, I mean, we really are in the golden or platinum age of gaming. And it doesn't matter where you game, you're going to have a great year.
I don't know. If
wanna
you're
just-
only on PS5, you might need a platinum card.
I just want to chime in on that. I agree with you on that, Jay. I mean, you're going to be charged out the ass on PlayStation. We know that. And that's,
Yeah, you can play God of War. You can play the mortgage.
On your house.
you're gonna
Look
pay-
how much
you-
Game Pass has
watch how much-
changed the way we think.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about it, Jedi. But I wanted to say this. I think Sony will have the stronger first half. Nintendo's going to be there somewhere in the middle. But I think since I don't game on Nintendo like I used to, it just doesn't. It's irrelevant to me largely. I am excited to see what Breath of the Wild 2, how that looks and comes out. But other than that, I'm just not into Nintendo like I used to be. So for me, it comes down to Sony and Microsoft, right? And so I think Sony has the stronger first half, and I think Xbox will have the stronger, without question, stronger second half. And mind you, we don't know what else they're bringing because E3 still has to come. So they're more than likely going to announce other games that's coming out this year, later on this year. So keep that in mind. As also, by the way, with Stalker being delayed, it does come out this year, just in December, which adds to the second half strong part for Microsoft.
Does that count though for the calendar year in December? Is it? I thought the cutoff was like this.
To me, it does. Well, to me it does. I think. I mean,
it counts. It counts. It's in December.
Yeah, like if you, if you're talking about like Game of the Year nominations, yeah, it won't count. But like, calendar year,
like shit.
Yeah. But I look at it just as a calendar year.
Thinking about it from how everything released last year around what PlayStation started off really strong at the beginning of the year, and then Xbox ended really strong at the end of the year. When you get to the end of the year and you look back on the year you've had, what's going to be the most impactful? And I think
the most recent, yeah,
exactly. So I think Starfield, like you said, brand new IP, it's going to destroy most things around it.
Yeah,
that's just a fact.
Oh, 110%.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not forking out, $140 for 2 games. Like, well, if you're in Australia, I don't know what New Zealand is, but I'd say it'd be similar. You're not forking out $230, $240 for that. That's a lot of money. That's half of your console right there, almost. So Game Pass is it's going to take the industry by storm. And if Spartacus comes out and has even half of the pool, even half of the day and date, even half of the catalog that Game Pass provides, it'll be a great thing for gamers. I want it. I want to see it.
Just to add to your point there, I think PlayStation gamers should be thanking Microsoft because now with them acquiring the studios they have and bolstering Game Pass the way that they have, now that means to me, and I think anybody with real logic, that service is going to have games day and date.
Yeah.
It has to.
It's pushed the competition. This is why competition is so good for the consumer. I mean, people were hating on Xbox, but look what they've done. Look what they've made Sony do. They've made them step up. They've made them bring their games to PC. Now they're making them bring on Spartacus.
That's right. Competition drives that. Exactly, Jedi. Yep. So, PlayStation gamers, you all are welcome. Thank Microsoft.
I think that Game Pass has changed the industry around how people view games as much as PlayStation toxic people think. Because I was the type of person who would wait and not buy a game day one and would then go into the bargain bins and like EB Games or what you guys call GameStop and then go in and be selective around that. So it just gave me a reason to not go and buy those really cheap deals because I'm getting them through Game Pass anyway. So I was already a cheap gamer and having a subscription service has just solidified that even more. And most gamers are looking for a deal and they're savvy. So I think it's just allowed all those gamers a nice easy way into doing it, and when they don't have to leave their house and go through the bargain.
I'm exactly the same as you. I go through the EB game bins to this day for PlayStation games. I don't need to for Xbox games, but I still do that, and those sales still count towards the sale count. So when you look at most PlayStation games and they talk about selling 10 million, they might have sold 3 million, 4 million, maybe even 5 million at full price. But then they never get it's always the sales that bring them up to the numbers that they need or want to be at. So it's a very interesting metric, sales to measure a success by. But we've got to move forward to Sony, and they forecast production and their sales drops, which is going to hurt them because they're expecting now to ship 11.5 million, and that was down from the estimated 14.8 million at the beginning of the generation. And software sales were flat at 3.77 billion, and their hardware sales dropped to 2.28 billion from a 2.94 billion. So they're actually starting to feel the pinch of what the rest of the industry is doing, the live service games, the Game Passes. These things are already starting to hurt them, not to mention the chip shortages, which is hurting them. They've already shipped 17.3 million, which is reportedly 5 million more than Xbox, but we don't really know. Jack, do you think that we're going to see Xbox catch up to Sony?
I'm gonna say no, and the reason is because I think based on numbers I've seen, if you take catch up, so to define like what is parity of competition, so if you take 17 million, right, and it's like what is it, like a 15% differential to define parity of competition, you're looking at like 1.2 million and change, right? So I'm gonna say no because I think they already have. I don't think they're gonna catch up. I think they clearly have. I'm skeptical. The issue of it is what we're looking at now is, and I know me and Jedi have talked about this at some length. So Jedi, feel free to kind of whenever you want. But what we're seeing for the first time is we're seeing what happened. I mean, it is sheer size, right? It is the sheer differential volumetric power between a company whose market cap is 147 billion. And then one is like 16.3 times higher at 2.38 trillion. So, and we're seeing that, and the playing field couldn't be level if you took Sony and multiplied it over 16 times by virtue of market cap, and it's starting to show. It's a different beast entirely. They showed up this generation ready to go. They had the gloves on. I think in terms of will they sell more consoles, I want to say this would be their best showing since the 360 era. A lot of that's going to depend on two factors. One is it's obviously going to be Game Pass, right? Because Game Pass is Xbox now. We understand this. And two, it's going to be the degree to which like legacy PlayStation gamers, like I once was, right? I thought I was a Sony guy, PlayStation. I always hated an Xbox. I was a PlayStation guy first, and I never thought I wouldn't be, you know. And it's going to depend on a lot of the legacy, you know, that legacy around Sony, and if they can maintain the luster of Sony. And I think the difference is now that was all preponderant upon exclusivity and being able to play content only on that platform, and we have clearly moved beyond that. And that's why you're seeing PlayStation games on PC. It's why we're seeing the entire landscape of the industry. It switched from a, you know, like Panda was saying, bag and bin, you know, brick and mortar store, go to buy something, to a lot more of being like a digital download, right? And now we're moving to a subscription service-based model. I think a lot of it's going to depend on if Xbox and Microsoft can stay as innovative as they have, because it's been so good. I almost envision it would be difficult to maintain that level of success, and whether whether Sony's entire business model is going the way of the dodo. But so it's very interesting.
Lifetime sales now, the PS4 is now ahead of what the PS5 has done in the same time period. Now, people can say that's due to a shortage of consoles and a shortage of chips, and I'm sure that has something to do with it. And I think PlayStation, we find, don't get me wrong, I think PlayStation's in markets that Xbox can't touch, and so they're going to sell their 100 million consoles and they're going to be fine. But what I found really interesting in comparison to the Sony numbers and the Xbox numbers is the hardware sales for PlayStation went down by, I think, 3%. And, that's, because everyone went out to buy a PlayStation 5 when they first came out. But Xboxes went up by 4%. Now, when's the last time that's happened? Because everyone that wanted to buy, all the Xbox gamers that wanted to buy Series X or Series S went out and bought them in 2020 when they could. But Xboxes actually went up by 4%, and that's with the chip shortage included. That is amazing, and I think that will continue.
I agree. And I think I think you hit it right on the head, Jedi. Zach, you too. I think the biggest thing to take away from this is, and I think people are kind of undercutting it by saying, "Oh, it's a shortage supply." I think that matters. Don't get me wrong, because PlayStation is absolutely in demand. The PS5, we don't need to sugarcoat it, but so is the Xbox Series X and even the S now. Because if you're not looking and paying attention, you wouldn't know that Xbox has been outselling the PS5 for a while now. So they're doing pretty well, and I think Destin spoke on it. Destin Legary spoke on it multiple times actually, and he said, and at first I was like, I don't know, but now I think he might be right. By the end of this console generation,
that graph thing he talks about
just might outdo it. Yeah, Xbox just might outdo the PS5 in total sales, or at least as far as users go. And the reason for that is because of the Trojan horse that is the Series S. So I think people kind of undercut that. The Series S combined with the Game Pass is major. And, you know, no matter how much they try to downplay the S and say it's holding, next gen back, we know absolutely that PlayStation is going to have cross-gen games until 2026 at the very least. And that's going to go on because they're games as a service. So that's going to be way until the end of the generation and going beyond. So the whole holding games back argument is dead in the water right there alone. But I think I agree with Destin now. Combined with the games that we know that are coming, I mean, with Hellblade 2, mind you, I think Hellblade 2 might drop later this year as well. So that's why I say the second half of this year is going to be really strong. I'm thinking it will. I'm telling you, Jack, I'm thinking it might.
I'm
telling you.
Hellblade 2 is like my ride or die game at the moment.
It's very possible. It's very possible that it could release. Yeah. I mean, think about it. Hellblade 2, we've already seen it. Sometime back, the dev spoke on how it was finished more or less as far as they showed the timeline and that they were doing, I forgot what part of the portion they were on. But as we saw the visuals, it's very clear they're very far in advanced into it. So I'm thinking Hellblade could be one of those releases that we hear about at E3. But we'll see. At the very least, we know it's coming. If not this year, next year.
What do you see it like 40-60 against it, but still like a possibility? You know what I'm saying? Give me a percentage here.
Me, I would say just based off what we saw already, how great it looks, and the timeline they spoke on way back, I'm thinking
because it was gameplay.
I would lean towards 60. They did, so I would lean towards 60-40 personally.
I'll co-sign that. I do believe that Xbox will this generation overtake Sony. I think Sony is on the back foot and came off this generation on the back foot, and they got a lot of work to do to get on the front foot to get back to being the top console. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I mean, at the moment they're on top, but I mean, if you look at Microsoft as a company, they don't just get those chips, those 7nm chips for the console. They use them for many of their different products. So they can place an order that's more important to suppliers than PlayStation can. I mean, PlayStation also use those chips in other products as well, but Microsoft massively more. So they also have the advantage there, where they can, I'm sure, that they can produce more, and we already know they can produce more of the Series S. So when you look at that, you look at the likelihood that they can produce more, you look at the likelihood that Game Pass is going to stay out in front of Spartacus and continue to bring new players to the service. I cannot see Xbox not being on top by the end of this generation.
Do you have to?
So, if you think that that's right, do you think that PlayStation made a massive mistake getting rid of Sean Layden and bringing Jim Ryan to the forefront because they were so far ahead last gen?
I think they made two mistakes. I think getting rid of Sean Layden was a mistake because he is for the players. Now, at PlayStation, you cannot say that they're for the players anymore. It's true.
For the rich players.
You absolutely can't.
It's for the players.
It's for the players. That's right. And then
sure.
Their other mistake was getting that console into production too early. Way too early. That's their other mistake. And then their third mistake is their vocalization against Game Pass. And then and also their salty supporters are now eating crow. Everyone is now eating crow, and they're going, shit, we made a mistake, and now we have to rectify it. So they're on the back foot.
We believe generations will haunt them. It'll be the TV of the Xbox One generation.
And I spoke with a few guys. Sorry, Jay. I was going to say this and I'll pass it off to you. I just want to say I spoke with a lot of heavy PlayStation guys. The guys that call themselves Pegasus, and absolutely, they are not a fan. They are not a fan of the games as a service idea with Sony. So now that Sony is actually getting on that late, I don't know how a lot of them will take that, and if it'll be a boom for them. So I don't know. We'll see how that works out. But I think Microsoft came into this with a great strategy. I think we can all see the momentum has been on Xbox side for the longest time, and I say that from the announcement up to now, from the VGAs when they first showcased the Series X and Hellblade with the announcement. Up till now, I think momentum has clearly been on Xbox's side, and then the acquisitions only helped further that. We didn't even get those games. We were just, we got this acquisition. And that carried us even without getting first-party titles the way that we wanted. So I think the momentum is there, and now we got those games that are going to start falling into play this year and next year. Because even if Hellblade doesn't come out this year, we got that next year. You got Fable next year. You got Avowed next year. You have Perfect Dark.
Yep. If you think 2022 is going to be good, wow. Look at 2023. Yeah. Wow. And onwards. Yeah, well said, Umbra. And I was finished, mate, so you continue, brother.
Oh, yeah. I think, Jack, were you saying something?
No, I was finished, brother. Oh, sorry, Jack.
Oh, yeah. No, you're good, Jedi. No, I was just saying, I think that ultimately, and it worries me because we all love PlayStation games. We're a little disappointed with, I think, what we could all call, like, at least in comparison, a pretty extortionate business model. I think with that disheartens us. I think it's particularly for the three of you that, I know that in Oceania, Australia and New Zealand, a game that costs me and Umbra, $60 costs you, like naming rights to your firstborn. So I understand that there's, obviously there's different, so I can understand, especially your position, vis-a-vis.
That's a first world country. We're a first world country.
Right.
You have to think about countries that aren't as fortunate as us, and they are paying through the absolute nose.
I think of Brazil when I think about games being too expensive. It's just stupid over there, and I feel sorry for them.
Yeah. No, my whole family's they can either pay a mortgage or they can get
sell their kidney.
Well, actually, you could sell.
Well, there's a market for that over there, isn't there?
Yeah, there really is. I mean, but
PlayStation, get on that.
Yeah, you should. I think the issue is, the problem is and it's easy because Microsoft could theoretically do this indefinitely, right? Where they just take losses because they can, that comes back to what I was saying, the sheer size of the dogs in the fight. I think the issue is when you get something like Game Pass and the solution is, hey, you pay this flat. I'm assuming, what do you guys pay? Like $10 for regular, $15 for Ultimate? Is that about right?
$10 for Ultimate.
Okay,
we pay 10 or 11 and 16.
Okay, so
I just add that GST for Australia, which is amazing by Microsoft, because usually they would add the transfer rates of the dollar, but they actually haven't done that. Yeah, and that's to their credit.
So, Pete, I gotta just cut everyone off here and just say, sorry, Jack, Snoozy, who's a long time friend of mine on Xbox. Just said that he is definitely not a fan of Halo. Snoozy, you need to come play the MCC with us. I wasn't a fan of Halo either, but we went through it, and I now am, and we will take you through it, kicking and screaming. You will love it. I promise you that. Now, sorry, Jack, go ahead.
I was just saying it's just disheartening because as weird as it sounds for me, like, I piss and moan and bitch about paying $60. Or $70, I guess, because even I have to pay $70 for a PlayStation first-party title, and you guys are paying $140. Even if you download it, even if there's no shipping cost, there's no, even if it's the exact same level of financial burden, the three of you are paying almost twice what me and Umbra are paying. So that is infuriating just as a gamer, even somebody that doesn't have to financially, shoulder that burden the way that they force. And you guys don't have access to, I believe, and I didn't even notice. It shocked the living hell out of me. And I don't know about you, Panda, because you're a Kiwi, but at least for the Australians, I don't, and you might be in the same boat. What PlayStation service is it that's not, is it PSNow, or which one is not?
That's the one that's not available yet.
Yeah, PSNow, which has been here forever, is not even available. Do you have PSNow in New Zealand, Panda?
No, we don't.
And they don't even have thongs over there. They got flip-flops. Why would they have
Wait, oh yeah.
Jandal's okay.
They got milk bars, milk delis, right? Yeah.
Hey, I've got better internet than you, so just don't. It's cheaper, so I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, but you can't play cricket, so it's
Cricket's just rich kid baseball without the chewing tobacco.
I won't watch cricket, but I will play it. But yeah, our team's not the best.
But and then,
oh no, the Kiwis won the the test
Well,
series.
they've been
Pete!
better recently.
Pete, what are you
They
doing?
haven't been amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
credit's due. Credit's where credit's due. They beat England in Lords like to win the test series. So
Jesus.
good on them.
It's like, shut up. Zip it.
And we couldn't get through the whole show without having Kiwi Aussie banter. You've got to have a little.
Exactly. I mean, if we're just looking at this generation, like, I definitely agree with all you guys saying. I think Xbox is very much set up to overtake with PlayStation around numbers quite easily, because everyone who, like, if you're playing purely on PlayStation side and you are looking at those price tags on those first party exclusive games, and then you're maybe even looking at a VR headset, you might even just go, actually, I could probably get a better deal, play more games, getting a companion device, which is the Series S, cheaply,
Right.
get Game Pass, and then you've got your intermediary games in between those first party AAA bangers that they have. So I think they're very much that. And in every single narrative that made PlayStation 4 what it was, the juggernaut it was, has been overturned
except-
in Xbox generation this turn.
Except
Seven.
one. There's one narrative that's still standing. I'll just add to the
Well,
before I go on to that narrative. There's one thing that you said there. Microsoft changed the metric. They changed the measurement of success. That's what they've done. This,
Player
and they've changed
engagement.
it to what PC measure their games as a success. They don't measure in sales. They measure in player count. That's why they
Player
have
count,
concurrent
yeah.
player count. And
Player
Xbox.
count.
What I
has
love about what
moved into that
Xbox has
territory.
done
And hang
is
on,
they haven't
2
really
seconds, Pete.
marketed that much.
2 seconds,
Hey,
Pete.
no, it's fine. Yep.
I'll come back to you, I promise. And the other thing I've forgotten now because Pete interrupted. So go on, Pete.
I was going to say, the great thing that Xbox has done is they haven't really marketed it that much, but it's mostly been through word of mouth. The Game Pass has got out there, you know, that narrative has changes.
The
That
narrative,
has changed.
Last
that's
year
what
on
it was.
Twitter when everyone was doing free advertising for it.
That's
Yeah,
That was
exactly.
hilarious.
That's the last
Yep,
standing
the graphs,
narrative, though,
yep.
for PlayStation. Their last standing narrative that hasn't been completely proven to be. I mean, again, it's subjective, but last generation they smashed Xbox with first party bangers.
Yeah.
Xbox has had a couple. We've had a couple this year. We have not completely whitewashed PlayStation yet. We're in a position to do so, but that is their
Hellblade 2.
last standing narrative. That's the last thing that those salty fanboys have to cling to, is that we still have the bangers from last generation. But that's last generation, salty boys. We're coming for you.
But that's the generation they believe in. They're still manufacturing the fucking PS4. Like that's the generation that they
Psychonauts
believe
2,
in.
Forza, Halo. I mean, these are Xbox-made games, all with very, very high Metacritic scores, all with critical and player acclaim. So it's changing.
Well, Deathloop was the same way.
Definitely.
Ghostwire Tokyo will be the same way too. Those are, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Even
Sounds
a lot
good.
of the games that they're going to be getting, you know, that you're going to play Ghostwire Tokyo on Game Pass. You're going to play Deathloop on Game
Yeah,
Pass.
you just made a good point that I just thought about. You know, I forgot about this. I'm pretty sure you all did too. You know that we get what was the game that Arcane made last year? We get that coming this year as well.
Yeah, Deathloop, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Forget about
Yeah, you're going to get Deathloop. You're going to get Ghostwire Tokyo. And that doesn't even include this. So, and I think this is the most underrated thing. A lot of people forget we're getting some pretty awesome third-party titles like on game, like whatever you thought of Rainbow Six Extraction. Right? And I'm not going to dive into the melee that is. I know exactly how Riskit feels about that game, but you know, or you got the entire remastered Mass Effect Legendary trilogy. You know what I mean? There's all we just got the Hitman
Trilogy. Yep.
So
I've been playing a Hitman too, by the way.
Oh, I know they are. There's just this third-party games coming on Xbox, you know, onto not even Xbox, but onto Game Pass. You're just getting them. And we still don't know what's going to go on with this, you know, Ubisoft integration. I ultimately think it is a path forward to full Game Pass, and I do.
I reckon it's going to go the same way of EA. Yeah.
As EA, and I think you're 100% right, Panda. I think you get so much more for infinitesimally less on an
Yeah, another narrative that's dead is the fact that Game Pass is not sustainable. Seeing that MLB The Show is coming back to Game Pass day one. They wouldn't do that if it wasn't successful for them.
Right. The argument of all the devs are suffering, well, that's dead. Devs have already come out and said that wasn't the case. Hey, I just wanted to say this because it was a bit of a breaking news thing. I don't know how much it would matter to anyone here, but we have Edge of Eternity coming this month.
Yeah. JRPG. Yeah, JRPG.
They were just acquired. They were just acquired by Nikon. NACON. Nikon just acquired them. The studio, Midgar. Yeah, just saw it on Twitter a second ago.
That is pretty interesting because there's that Eastern acquisition. That's an interesting foreshadow.
Yeah, definitely. But just to point out, I mean, going by like what you guys said, I mean, like you said, Jack, the buy-in and Jedi, the buy-in for getting with Xbox and its ecosystem is the ridiculously great nature of how great it is for consumers.
Oh,
it's not even arguable.
It's $24 a month to get a Series S with Game Pass included for 24 months.
Exactly.
Oh, if you finance it?
By the way, someone tried to make that a negative, by the way, when Destin pointed out, $600 for the S, ignoring that's for the S, as well as, I think, 2 years of Game Pass Ultimate.
Yeah, you save like $50. You save money.
Exactly.
They don't cost you more.
So,
like most deals like that will cost you more. Like you get
absolutely would. It's a win all around, and arguing against the otherwise it's foolish. So when I see people doing it, it's like just let go.
Irritating.
It's okay.
That is genuinely irritating. It is when I see people arguing against Game Pass. I'm like, you're arguing against the most consumer-friendly, expansive service in the history of this industry.
But how much of it have you seen lately?
No,
how much arguing against Game Pass have you seen lately? Because you know what I've noticed?
Well, the narrative
that's dropped down to almost zero.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Yeah, then
Spartacus.
Because the financials are in. Yeah, and Spartacus,
Game Pass
right?
Fodder, guys. That's still a narrative that they've got.
Oh.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of been kicked in the balls a bit, over the last 2 months. So Spartacus is obviously a cheap emulation. I don't know if it'll be cheap because it's PlayStation, but
that's how they're gonna downplay it though and go, this is why Spartacus is better because it's got these first-party games on it, blah blah blah.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't. No.
Yeah, right. Spartacus. Do you guys actually? Because I know exactly what it is, and it's not like this isn't me. Like I have a cousin whose dog walker moonlights as a 9-figure Sony executive. Like I know what it is. You are paying. This is what you're paying for. So you're paying you're paying for one of 3 tiers, right? For the entirety of your subscription, right? And those 3 tiers will offer you as you ascend, the rung of extortion. They will offer you simply more backwards compatible titles. So if you pay twice as much, you can have a couple of PS2 games that probably weren't sold in 2 continents. There's no mention of day and date. There's no. It's not. It's an imitation. I want to call it cheap because it's Sony. It's going to hit your pocketbook. But the idea that is somehow remotely.
I'm really sorry, but Red Dead Panda just put
I saw that too,
Discord.
mate. That was great.
And you should have put it in the chat. Panda, the final tier will activate the magical SSD. Oh my god, that is absolute gold.
I wasn't even looking. Yeah, no.
Look, the tiers are going to be free for me on Twitter. I'll just be watching them flow all day.
Well, here's the thing. So there's three tiers, but if you pay 6 times more, it'll jump you to the 7th tier. And then you get a 15-minute window to play The Last of Us 2 Factions. So it's gonna be a banger. I'm telling you guys, don't. And when you name your service after a man that whose head was put on a pike over a slave revolt, I'm like, you're not really inspiring confidence. Like,
no.
it just doesn't, Like I would have named it like if you wanted it to be so, it should have been like, what are you getting? I just got Sam Jackson tier 3. Like that would be badass.
What do you guys think they're going to ultimately name the service? I'm thinking PS Ultimate, or not PS Ultimate, but like PS Platinum or something like that.
I think PS.
PS Great.
I think PS Infinite. Like they got to do it. They're gonna do it.
That would be funny. That would be
You
funny.
I don't know, PlayStation factions.
Or like PlayStation Diamond, something to go along with the trophies, maybe something like that.
great.
Maybe.
Great
Way off
Monad
that.
in the chat there said, let me just find it. There you go. Yeah, he said, don't you mean Farticus?
Farticus. Yeah, that's what it is.
Right. Part of this.
Every time you stick a quarter in it, Jim Ryan rips ass and pops out a PS1 game. That could be the case.
Look, guys, it's been an absolutely amazing show. We've got to bring it to an end. We're almost on the 3-hour mark, so it's been quite the mission. What a great show, and you guys coming along has been absolutely amazing. Everyone in the chat has been absolutely amazing. The guys who come here every week, you guys keep the show going and you power it, and we appreciate you. There's mostly only Australians left, though, or people from around this area, because I realise it's pretty late in the morning. Yeah. But look, if you haven't hit the like button or subscribed and you're new here, please hit the like button, subscribe. We go live every week at 7 p.m. EST time Friday, and it is Saturday AEST Australian time, Australian Eastern Standard Time. If you want to find me, I'm on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter under Risk It for the Biscuit, or you can find me on Twitch, which I will be streaming quite soon on Twitch, and just being a complete hooligan with probably Pete and Umbra and even Jack and maybe Red Dead, hopefully.
Maybe.
So I want to thank the guys that came along the show. As always, Jack, you were amazing. You've changed your name from Shits, but tell us where we can find you, what you're up to, and what you are doing. Go.
You can find me on Twitter. Obviously, I'm the Jack Astronaut. My arraignment is going to be on Wednesday. Big thank you to JediKnightPete for posting my bail so I could be here tonight. I really appreciate it. Just want to thank all the hosts here for having me. And everybody in the chat, you guys are great, and I'll use you as alibis at a predetermined time and date. Thank you.
Red Dead Panda, can you tell us what you are up to, where we can find you, all about your podcast? Give us your dates.
Give me the lowdown. Okay. So you can find me on Twitter. I'm generally pretty active on there, Red Dead Panda, and then the number 1 on the end of it. I do have a YouTube channel, RedPandaGaming, but I just, with ADHD, I find it sometimes very hard to focus and put anything up. But you can basically find me every Friday night / Saturday morning. So Saturday morning New Zealand time. It's so confusing. There's 2 different times.
It's hard.
It's over 2 days. It's so hard. But I'll get there one day, guys. Gamers Initiative podcast. So just jump onto Elite Gaming Guru's channel and subscribe. But I'm there as a guest, and we have Ashtray Gaming with us every week.
Who's an absolute champion. And I'll post a link in the description to make it easy for everyone to find you and the time that they can find you.
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter, and you'll see the posts about when we go live, because I put them up there as well. But
you had me at ADHD though, because I want to see those videos. And
I have subscribed to Red Dead Panda's channel, I just want to say, and I catch her on her podcast. It's absolutely great. So what's your podcast name again, Panda?
Gamers Initiative podcast.
Gamers Initiative. Everyone watch that. It's a great show.
Sounds like they copied us, Initiative Infinite. It's pretty similar. It's pretty similar.
Yep.
What are you up to? What are you doing over there? What's going on?
He's always copy. What am I saying?
As always, JediKnightPete appearing on the panel. Thank you for coming along every week and putting up with my ADHD. Tell us where we can find you, what you're up to, what you've been playing.
Look, you can find me on Twitter, JediKnightPete, or on Xbox, JediKnightPete. But I just wanted to say, apologise to the chat for not really interacting with you today. You guys make the show. Thank you so much. My phone was playing up to Doovie, to C Steph, to Boba Fett, to Monad. You guys are amazing. You're here every week supporting us, and I appreciate it. To Jack, thank you for coming on. Everyone, I told Jack about the show 5 minutes before it was on, and he was kind enough to come in and join us and help us out because we had a panel member drop out at last minute. So thank you so much, Jack. We really appreciate it, mate. And and to Risk It. Nobody knows how much work Risk It has been doing in the background, and this isn't our regular day, but that's because, you know, he's had to go through hell and back to get this show going today. We will be back at our regular time from now on, but Risk It, mate, I mean, you are just amazing. Thank you for continuing to put on this show, to putting your blood, sweat, and tears into it. Thank you so much, mate.
Cheers. Good. All good. Umbra, tell us where you're at, what you're doing, where we can find you. Apparently you have a PlayStation tag. I've changed that in the description because it was Nope. But I've added that. I've added that for you.
My buddies pointed out, they said, why your PlayStation PSN just says Nope? I'm like, I got a PSN. But that was funny as hell. But yeah, a great show, guys. Again, I like to mimic what Jedi pointed out. Thank you, Jack, for coming through like you did, brother. I know that was so last second, but you came through and it was like second nature. It felt like you were scheduled all along. Red Dead Panda, I've never met you until today, but it's been a pleasure hearing you too. I mean, great thoughts. Yeah, absolutely. Great thoughts from you guys. And I want to check out your podcast as well. And I'm going to follow you on Twitter as well, because I hadn't followed you until, or known about you exactly until, last week when it was mentioned that you would be on the show with us. Thank you guys both for coming through. And of course, to my panel mates, Jedi and Risk It, you guys are always great. And of course, I'm always ever grateful to be here with you. Great show, man. I'm just thankful. And the chat, you guys were excellent. Thanks to all my brothers that came through, from Steph to Grum, who always hold us down, to J-Rock for coming through, to Logical, and to Great Monad, who's always here with us. To everyone. If I didn't name you, trust that I'm thinking of you, and I thank you all for coming through. You can find me on Twitter under InfiniteUmbra, fitting for the podcast, right? And of course, as Superhavoc on Xbox. So if you're gaming and you do want to jump in and game with me sometime, just introduce yourself to me in a message and say, hey, I'm such and such off Twitter or whatever in the chat. And absolutely, I'll add you back and we can game sometimes. Maybe that'll be good for you, Snoozy. I see you in the chat. We're going to make you a full bot by the end of this. Yeah.
He's been on Xbox for years. I've had him on my friends list for man, it's gotta be I don't know 7 years. I play with him.
So he's an Xbox gamer. He's just not a Halo fan. That's what it is.
He's not a Halo fan.
Okay.
But I'm going to call out one last thing. Boba Fett Gaming there in the chat. I see you there. And Boba Fett Gaming hosts a Australian collective, but it's not exclusive. We do take everyone. And that is every Friday night at 8 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time. I'll put a link in the description to that as well.
So Friday and Saturday night for Community Game Night, hosted by Ashtray and Boba Fett Gaming.
Yeah, and so jump into that, Snoozy. That'll be a great one for you. Anyone else who's an Aussie in the chat, jump in. Anyone else who's an American in the chat, jump in. We have a great time. We have everyone in. It is absolutely awesome. Again, thank you everyone for coming. Everyone in the chat, you made the show what it is. Continue to make the show what it is, and I do it for you. Red Dead, Jack, thank you. You guys are champions. Great chats today. And the panel, as always, you guys have been amazing. And we will catch you next week at the regular time, 7 p.m. EST and 11 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. 11 a.m. Saturday, at least Australian Eastern Standard Time. Right, so I'm going to have to write this down.